I put my hat down somewhere strange, so my hair's falling all over.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Survivor NSFW Rewind. Professor Tim watches Borneo. Today we will be discussing episode 8. The episode is called My Name is Duplicity, which is very telling, I feel, this time. So I am your host, Karen Eisenberg, and just when we came on, we were discussing, Tim was just letting us know about the whole situation in the UK with haircuts. I know you had your big Saturday and everything opened up.
Yeah, well, it didn't open up very much for me. I didn't go out. I was too terrified.
Oh, you're still
smart.
But I did go and wave at my at one of my neighbours who runs a hairdressing salon, and she's occasionally trimmed my beard. She said, "Oh, you'll have to make an appointment." And I thought, "Oh, I don't even know what the telephone number is." So I got the scissors out, and I trimmed the beard, and I don't know whether I did a good enough job, but I realised that my hair is all over the place, and I put my hat down somewhere now. So if I suddenly start looking like one of those, wasn't there this wonderful cartoon character which was just all hair with a nose sticking out?
Well, I'm also thinking of Cousin It.
Cousin It from the Addams Family.
Addams Family. That might not be what you're describing.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Captain Caveman also had a similar look.
Yes. At any moment, I may descend into that. Jonny, you don't seem to have this problem.
So wait, just before, we've heard him already, but let me just bring him on. We are also just being joined today, of course, by the man, the myth, the legend, the great Jonny Fairplay.
Oh, stop it.
Yeah.
I'm skin and bones just like the rest of us. Just really special skin.
I have to say, Jonny, we have never met or spoken before.
We have not, but I'm a fan of your work. And
we had about sort of 5 minutes before we come on air, and we've restrained ourselves and not actually exchanged any real conversation. So we keep it fresh and alive.
Yeah. No, I'm pumped because Karen came to me with this idea and asked if she could present this under the Survivor NSFW umbrella, and I was like, what a unique concept. And I loved it in idea and theory. But I was just like, it could be wonderful or it could be a mess. It could be a happy medium. And I am delighted to say I love this podcast. I think this is one of the freshest, most unique looks at reality television that I've heard in podcast form in years.
And people are copying us now. Like on our well, in a sense that like on RHAP now. So what Josh Wigler is same thing as viewing The Mole for the first time, being led along by 2 other people who know the show very well.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the innocence of you as someone who's been on the other side of the camera, for reality television with the Circle UK, to go and watch, the greatest reality show in the history of ever. Survivor, the granddaddy of them all, if you will.
Yes.
It's really fun, and I think the best part about watching you watch Survivor is the innocence of you as a viewer. Like I don't you're seeing the game develop fast forward 5 seasons, and the game is so far complex and strategic versus this show in which they're kind of figuring out the rules as they go along, and the people that are figuring out the rules that will be the template for later seasons. You don't like that. You're like,
it's quite true, but in fact I take quite a firm exception to it, but I like to think there's a difference between the characters, and I love the characters that I meet, and what people do, and I think there's a big distinction to be made between these two things. And number 2, of course, it is just a game, and one of my favorite friends from the Circle is the person who's supposed to be my arch enemy. And he was one of my favorite friends during the Circle as well. But of course, television and the production didn't want to show that because they wanted to show a sort of adversarial thing because it's good TV.
Sure.
And so, you're always trying to weigh up the one thing against the other. And, so I had a look at your moment of extreme deception the other day,
Yes.
and I was so impressed. I was impressed. I was appalled. I was shocked.
But this is amazing, Tim. Tim is starting to go over to the dark side, because
No, I'm not in the dark side.
You're not there. You're not there, but you're dipping your toe in that dark side water.
He would have been horrified if I had sent this to him before we'd started. I think he probably wouldn't agree.
You might
to
have
go
done the
on.
show.
Right now, he loves it. And being kind of also appalled is perfectly reasonable. Like, that's how
those were the reactions I wanted. I wanted, like, for all the viewers at home, there were so many facets of the dead grandmother lie. And it goes back to what the episode we're talking about today. That Jenna Lewis not getting that tape from home was crushing, not only to her but to everyone else. You have the players. It's just like, could you imagine not getting that tape? Like, it destroyed her. It destroyed me seeing her not get that. And then you have others going, God, I feel so sorry for Jenna. I couldn't imagine being that, she must feel so removed from everyone else right now. And then take two steps over, and it's just like, well, Jenna's now the most dangerous person here, sitting at the tape. Everyone feels sorry for her. Got to send her home.
It is exactly. I mean, it's so brilliant. And there's two issues in today's show which I hope we're going to talk about.
Tim, I'm sorry. I'm just gonna barge in here and take over control, because Johnny has told us this is the middle of the workday in the U.S. I have weird work hours. I have a lot of control over my schedule, but we're only gonna have Johnny today for part of the show. So right now, I need to steer the ship so that we can get Johnny.
Steer the ship, but we have to get lots of spare time now.
I'm going to now. This is a Survivor reference that Tim is not going to get, but Tim, I need you to get in the back seat and let me drive.
Okay.
Which is, again,
I can't drive, by the way, so that would be the only place I would sit.
I love it. I want to ride with you somewhere. It seems like fun.
Oh yeah.
Are you familiar with the term bumper cars?
No.
Oh well.
No, wait, but Tim. So Tim, tell us what you think bumper cars might be. We've kind of get along from this. I used to ask Tim every week.
I presume they're a little bit like dodgems. In the fairground.
Like in the fair, yep.
Yeah.
Oh, where you hit one another.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what it is.
They're not bumper cars here. Okay. Well, I would like to play dodgems with you in a real car with you driving. I just think it's fun. You are third, correct?
I would descend into mirth and start screaming, "Hit me, hit me!"
Real quick, Karen, before you take us on this journey, getting back to just to put everything together with the dead grandmother lie. So when I did that, going back to the Jenna Lewis thing, I watched that and cried. I watched again this morning at 7 a.m. and Jenna Lewis is a very good friend of mine, and I knew it was coming. I had seen the episode, but watching again, boom, tears rolling down my face. So me going into Survivor Pro Islands, I had never seen the show before I was cast. I order every episode off eBay. I'm watching every season in order. And every time we got to anyone, loved ones related, I would cry. And I'm just like, well, I'm a horrible person, and this made me cry. I can only imagine what it does to an ordinary human. It's like, so how can I use this to my advantage? And there are certain perils that happen to people playing the game and their loved ones outside the game. And so, going back to the early roots of Jenna not getting the tape and me, kind of twisting that in that, I don't get to see my grandmother. That's who, night one, they're like, who's your loved one? It's like, mine's my grandmother. They made me a list of backup. They would sit around the fire praying for my grandmother at night. They're like, your grandmother's going to be here. And so, but this all harkens back to this, season 1, episode 8 moment in which you see so many different reactions. And, and I, as a player, I wanted to invoke that emotion initially as a viewer. I wanted to hook you in and be like, God, this guy's a scumbag. but he is just like us. Like, he does hurt. He does feel, this is, it doesn't matter how big a scumbag you are, there, in most people, there are real feelings buried somewhere. And so with me, I wanted to draw from that and then just pull off the greatest, villain move in the history of the game. And, and with that, I wanted the hate. I wanted the anger, but also to the side, I wanted the appreciation for just amazing gameplay. And that's what that was. I mean, a lot of people are just like, well, you didn't win. I'm like, that wasn't the goal. My goal was to create the greatest moment in the history of reality television. And I feel that I did that. And I feel that it stood the test of time. In addition to that, I used that lie so much for, I had screwed over Sandra 4 times, I'd go back and I'm just like, and she's like, you're just going to screw me again. I'm like, well, this time I swear on my dead grandmother. And they're just like, well, he means that. And then you had the viewers screaming at their televisions like, he's lying.
Especially at the finale when your grandmother came on.
Yes.
And I guess, and you didn't prep her for this, it seems.
I gave her what she needed. It needed to be as authentic as possible. And I felt it did. I mean, because I feel that there was so many components to this that I felt that it needed realism here. So it was just, there was a lot there was a lot that went into doing that. I mean, like figuring out which of my scumbag friends would go through with the lie once we got out there was huge. I mean, because I have plenty of scumbag friends, but I have plenty of scumbag friends that would have gotten out there and read the room and been like, yeah, I ain't doing that.
Yeah. So, but Jonny, but Tim, I'm sorry. So this really shows you, the whole point is Jonny was designed for reality TV. He's an entertainer.
Yeah.
Right. He's a professional wrestler before he was right. So he's very aware.
Brilliant.
Right. And but he has the kind of, the foresight and he's like, how can I help them make good TV? And I do think there are people, I think Rich might have understood that. Maybe Rudy understood that.
I don't think Rudy understood that. Well, I think Rudy is amazing television, but it's the fact that he doesn't know that he's amazing television. There's no filter.
I think Greg is amazing television as well.
Oh, absolutely. And I should say right now, by the way, that I did try. I tried to stalk Greg Buis to see if there's any way we could find him, and I actually found him on LinkedIn.
Oh my goodness!
He lives in Colorado, and he's the head of some energy company. But I did reach out, knowing that he probably wouldn't get back to me, which I said I knew he wasn't going to get back to me, and he didn't get back to me. But we tried. Because he is something that I would love.
I will reach out to him on LinkedIn too. You must give me his details, and I will reach out as well. But look, the thing I was going to say is Jonny, how brilliant was your strategy? I have to use this word now. But secondly, I'm so relieved to hear that you weren't going out to win. You were going out to make good television and to play the game, and that seems to me to be the key.
I wish I had incorporated that into my checklist of things to do. I wanted to be the greatest villain in the history of reality television. I wanted to make the greatest moment. I wanted to make great television. I wish I had a 4th or 5th box on my checklist of win $1 million, because my wallet would have appreciated that part of the checklist.
The only reason Jonny didn't win is that a 50-some-year-old woman was able to stay in this crouched position for 2.5 hours without falling over. Anyway, the point,
if I had to guess, I think they knew that I win that final challenge, no problem. So, I mean, I think they wanted me to win Survivor Pro Islands. So I don't think there was manipulation to make that happen. But I think if they have 3 final challenges sitting in the back in a storage locker, they're just like, yeah, Fairplay's got this one. Right. Well, what they didn't know, and I didn't know, and anyone else didn't know, is the fact that Lil does yoga 5 times a week, and this challenge was made for someone that does, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, did you say Yoda? Uh-oh, we might be in trouble, guys. So,
I'm around Lil's age, and I also do work out, but I'm just looking at her and saying, like, she's got to have the strongest thighs I've ever seen.
She does. So, well, dude, as I said, yoga 5 times a week. Trust me, since that day, I've added yoga to the curriculum. So they do that same challenge 2021. Guess who's ready? This guy right here.
Right. But it's not that Jonny was voted off, because he made a strategic mistake, or even just because they got so angry at him for the whole grandmother thing. It was simply that one challenge.
Yeah. Yep. And they didn't know about the grandmother thing until they watched the episode months later. No one knew. And a lot of people give credit to Sandra for seeing through it. And it's not, she didn't know. She didn't care. It's a huge difference. Like, I mean, she might have changed her story now. I would think she would
really?
be. Like,
you think that she believed it and didn't care? I think she was the one person who saw right through you.
No,
she was going to give her that. You say no?
She wanted to see her husband and didn't. She was like, okay, his grandma died. It ain't like him winning this challenge brings her back.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
And the options are she gets to see her husband who's alive,
right?
Or I get to see my buddy who's obviously an asshole like me, and they're going to talk about some dead person that we can't bring back to life by hanging out. So she's like, no, screw you. I want to see my husband who I love and is alive.
If that's true, that actually kind of makes me love Sandra even more, though.
Yeah. No, I got no beef. Like it's Sandra to a T. That is the character of Sandra. So I have people are just like, they're like, she saw through it. I'm like, no, she didn't. And they're just like, well, that's even worse. I'm like, no, it's not. It's just even more Sandra. So, and I don't fault I don't fault someone for being themselves. I hate them for violent acts and against weak people and stuff like that. That I have a problem with. There's a mischievousness to the character of Jonny Fairplay, but I don't think there's a malice to the character.
But do you think your gameplay there was enhanced by the fact that the audience could see that this was a lie?
Yeah, no. Like I like that reveal. I knew, like, as I said, I not only studied Survivor, but I studied reality television. Like, I used to watch Real World and all that. And I drew, because, like, I had never seen the show. I was cast, and, so I'm watching all the tapes, the seasons in order, and they're just like, what do you think? And I'm like, I like Real World better. I think your show's a little boring. I'll be honest with you. And then, it escalates and escalates. And I'm just like, okay, I'm getting, because they kept out. They're like, have you seen Boston Rob yet? Have you seen Boston Rob? And so I finally saw Boston Rob. I was like, all right, I see what they want. So, right. And so I kind of just started, putting together that character based on what I felt they wanted and what I wanted to present as an entertainer.
How close do you think the character you were presenting was to aspects of yourself?
I think the 80% that you see Jonny Fairplay is just me turned up to 11, which I can be turned up to 11, in everyday life without a camera, no problem.
Yeah.
I think the anti-women stuff that I was saying, I was quoting Andy Kaufman, the comedian that he did a whole wrestling shtick. He wrestled Jerry Lawler, and before that, he had wrestled women for months in Memphis, and that was a whole shtick of Andy. And I was actually quoting Andy Kaufman line for line. So, like, I did the it's me and 4 women at the end. When it comes to scrubbing the floor or peeling potatoes, yes, women are superior to men. But when it comes to things like thinking, men are vastly superior. Unless it's a getting pregnant contest, I don't like their chances. So that's Andy Kaufman line for line.
And also, this is 2003. So I mean, yes, you could not do this today. But so it was shocking, but it was not that shocking. Things have changed so much in 17 years.
But have you ever seen the show Better Call Saul? From the makers of Breaking Bad.
I love that show.
Well, Bob Odenkirk is a good friend of mine.
Seriously?
That's Bob's right there. So Bob watching the show, like he's at a meeting. I think he's with MTV executives, and they're having a 1 hour. They're just like, this kid is quoting Andy Kaufman. They're just like, this guy's a genius. And they sent this book. This was to the head of CBS Public Relations. But please pass this along to John. He was kind enough or cool enough to list this book as his favorite book on CBS.com. And this is from Bob's wife, Naomi. And then Bob wrote, "You kill me, goddammit," Bob Odenkirk. And then David Cross, his writing partner, wrote, "Read and learn, asshole," David Cross.
Yeah. Oh, I'm immensely impressed. Give him a hug.
Yeah,
I love him so much.
So, but like Bob Odenkirk got it. He comes there, it's just like, this kid's doing Andy Kaufman. This is next level stuff. Bringing all these little,
it's meta theatrical. You see.
Yeah.
And
so that was like.
Yeah, but on the other hand, I will say, I've always said, and I think you would agree with this, that after 39 days of starving and not sleeping, et cetera, at a certain point, you become yourself. So Johnny, like you said, what you see on the TV is mostly, like I said, Johnny turned up to 11. I really don't. I mean, what do you think, Tim? Can you really play a different character on a show and sustain it? Do you feel? I mean, I'm not talking about as a on something on the circle. I'm not talking about. I'm just saying, just in general. If you decide to go on a show and you just decide, I want to be the opposite of me, is that going to work?
No, that will never work.
I don't think so either.
I think
you see people the first few days out there attempting to be something that they're not, and then they settle into what they are, and and it's 50-50 of whether, really wish it would have worked out the other way, or man, why weren't you like this the whole time?
Yeah. I mean, it's just it's all the Stanislavski stuff. Actors spend years learning how to do it, and it's really hard to be another person. I mean, spies spend years, I presume, learning how to do it. I think I missed my James Bond opportunity, but I still do a villain. I've got the cat for it. No, I'm waiting for you to die. And I've got the accent. But no, it's I think the moment the camera is on you, you become a different version of yourself. You become a heightened version of yourself, as Johnny was saying, number one. But number two, it's how much control you have over that. And so even if you want to be yourself, you still have to have control over that presentation. And what I find so refreshing, Johnny, about your talking about your motivation is the bottom line there is that you were taking control over the show, and not only were you controlling your own presentation, you ended up controlling the arc of the show, I believe.
Yeah. Well, after I did that, Mark Burnett pulled me aside. He goes, "This is now your show." And I'm like, "Where the fuck have you been? It's been my show since I got here, brother."
Yeah. Well, people said the same thing to me, and the question is, was I aware? Yes, I was. Was I being? What was I dissembling? Was I being deceptive? Was I not being me? No, I was being me, but in a sort of heightened way.
Sure.
And being on my own, I was sort of more than me in a way. And I was me with the ability to look at me at the same time. And I think one does that whenever one's performing. So it isn't reality. I'm aware of doing it when I lecture. I'm aware of doing it. I'm aware of doing it all the time, really. But to actually do it on television, to suddenly have that extra dimension where you suddenly think, "Oh yeah, there's a camera there."
Yeah.
And the camera must have just picked up that moment because it was good, and it was accidental, but it was good. Now I need to build on that.
I think it's a heightened reality.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I'm very curious for you to watch a character coming up on a later. I don't know how many seasons you plan on watching, but
I'm committed, Johnny.
All the way through.
I think I'm. And he wants to watch Big Brother. He wants to watch Big Brother too.
Okay. So, but you're gonna come across a character named Coach, who obliviously is the most amazing character, I think, in the history of the show. I mean, he's just so amazing, and he doesn't grasp what makes him amazing. And then he comes back for a second season, and he attempts to catch that lightning in a bottle and doing what he's like. He saw the show in a way that I don't think anyone else did, watching himself. And he was like, oh, this is what they like. And it wasn't any of that we liked. It was the obliviousness that we liked. And so him trying to play that character was an epic fail. His second season, I think, is one of the worst characters in the history of the show. But then you come around, I don't know why, and thank the Survivor gods for it happening. We get a third opportunity, and that third chapter is the most amazing chapter.
But I mean, I've only seen 5 minutes of you on the show, and Karen very kindly sent me a link, and I watched it a few times. I thought, this is fascinating because clearly you're planning to be the villain.
Sure. And I was the first in the history of reality television. No one had been anyone that was a villain before me said they got a bad edit. They're like, that wasn't me. They chose that 1 minute of the day where I lost it, and that's what they chose to show you. And it's just like, well, they don't have CGI. I mean, that's you. It's reality TV. They're cheap. So that was you. They
are indeed. Yes.
So whereas with me, I went out there day one. I'm like, I want to be the greatest villain in the history of reality television, and they're jerking off each other. They're just like, this is the greatest thing of it. Like, did you hear what he said? He wants to be the bad guy. We don't have to manipulate these scenes and put these words here and show this out of order here. This guy, Puck, did not feel he was a villain. He did not. So not true. And it's crazy. Puck takes credit. I did a VH1. I'm reading the comments here. I did a VH1 Reality Stars, Where Are They Now? And they had interviewed me. I think I was in Detroit for an appearance, and we were in a hotel room for several hours doing interviews. And they're like, oh, this one's going to be a big one for you. I was like, sure. And they're like, Puck from the real world. And I was like, I was a fan. I was like, he was great TV. He's one of the original villains. He didn't see himself as such, but he thought he was a good dude. And they're just like, well, what about your conversations? And I was like, I've never met him. Like, what do you mean? And they're just like, we just got through interviewing Puck, and he went on for about 45 minutes about how you called him before Survivor and how he taught you how to be a bad guy. And I was like, I've never met him and or spoken with him. I was like, I wish I could have learned a lot. No clue, never met him. So yeah, no, Puck was not the first villain. Richard Hatch was not, because I don't feel Richard Hatch considered himself a villain.
Well, so far I would definitely think not.
Yeah.
I mean, he's taking advantage of situations, but the one thing that I think you have over Richard is you come across as very vulnerable.
I think that's there just based on my size and frame, and I use that. So
you definitely do. So suddenly there's layers. So somebody with somebody sneering and twirling their moustache can never be a convincing villain in my mind, because they don't have that vulnerability to start with. You need that vulnerability. And once you've got that, then you can play against character, and it's wonderful. When I was acting years and years ago, I was always the villain. I was always doing these sort of arched eyebrows and stuff, and I thought I got tired of it, and I thought, this is bad for my soul to become.
Well, that part I can tell you is true.
and I thought, no, I have to stop acting because it's not doing me any good. And even if I was playing the sort of the Shakespearean villains with these great speeches, 9 times out of 10, I was moving it much closer towards a panto villain. In fact, on one occasion, I did a Greek tragedy, and I got hissed. I got hissed and booed for playing Creon, and I thought, that's an achievement, really.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
To play Creon, rather like King Rat. And I thought, no, this is the direction I'm going in. I'm becoming cheap, and now I think if I went back into that sort of world, I could play the sort of avuncular, charming people, and Cinderella's father. I could play all those little parts. Zorba, Tevye, and part of that is because I've got a darkness inside me. So I think I'm the opposite to you. You have this vulnerability and this lightness inside you, and so you can do dark. I have this darkness inside me, so I want to be the clown. I want to be I want to play bright. And now I feel I can. But without that contrast, you just can't do it.
Don't think so. I agree.
Yeah. But we have to get on to the episode. I'm so sorry.
I was going to say, and we're going to take things out of order today just because Jonny does have limited time. There's two things that I want to discuss with him on, and then we will go back. So we're not going to start with the very, very beginning of the episode. Actually, even before the episode, I wanted to bring up the whole, I think we've discussed spoilers, right? And some people like spoilers, some people don't. But this is the point at which CBS starts making fake spoilers to throw people off the scent. People were absolutely just convinced that there must be, signs of the winner. And actually there are. I don't want to tell you now exactly what it is because you'll go back and watch and then you'll know who won. You want to talk about reading and edit. But before this episode, they stopped showing this particular shot that they showed in the first 7 episodes because they were afraid that it was giving away the fact that a certain person was going to win and this person was the winner. So they started doing things to throw people off the scent, and there were 2, one of which might have been a mistake. The second one definitely isn't. So the first one is the shot that they subbed back in at the beginning, and it's a very short thing that was for a second and a half, and you probably didn't even notice. But if you go back, and this I'm allowing you to do, Tim, but not the other. There's a shot of what looks to be a final 4. They are at tribal council.
Oh, that's right.
There are only 4 people there.
In the yellow gear.
Yeah. You mean at the very, very beginning of the show, you got that brief glimpse of 4 people.
Yes.
Okay. So that was done. So that is actually, and that final 4 was Jervis, Colleen, Sean, and Rudy. Okay. And people saw the shot of just the 4 of them and nobody else at tribal. And they said, this has to be the final 4. This is absolutely 100% CBS trolling people, because what they actually did was they took a different episode, not this episode, but a later one where somebody else goes home, and digitally removed everybody else.
Really?
Yeah. So that is actually a shot from an episode where there were, 6 or 7 people left. My math is not great. Sure. And they removed several people to make it look like this was the final 4.
How extraordinary. I had no idea.
Yeah. And then the second thing that they did again, which may or may not, I think it's amazing. Yeah. And then the second thing that they do, which could have happened by mistake, but given that they definitely did troll the one time, I'm not going to give them the benefit of the doubt on the other one. There used to be on the graphic on the CBS page, there was, a shot of, if you go to Survivor, whatever, there was a shot, and they do this very often, of, the 16 headshots of the 16 players. Yep. And then as each person gets voted out, they would put an X over their face. Okay.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, and this was just to kind of get people so they could see, okay, these are the 16 people. No, this is very common. This isn't not, I'm just setting it up so that you can see, if you want to check out, okay, these are the 16 people and these 7 people have already gone home and this is what's left. And you can do that, I think, probably even today. If you go on the right page on most of these websites, you'll see something like that. Okay.
Yeah.
But what they did, some people went, deep into the code of the bowels of the CBS website and got to see a shot where everybody had an X over their face except for Jervis, which again would lead you to believe that Jervis is the winner.
Oh my goodness! By doing absolutely nothing, that would be a disturbing way.
Yeah. Like I said, and they claimed that they don't know how that happened. I'm skeptical, but I'm saying this is the degree to which they went to try to keep people from figuring out who won.
Yes. How
but
extraordinary.
But it only works when you have crazy people like me who will do the detective work to try to figure it out.
Well, it gets crazier because on Pearl Islands, we were told they're like, if you'll be told when the helicopter comes over to film or whatever. So they have code words for us, and they give us the heads up. They're like, hey, come out, blah, blah, blah. And now it's all done via drones, which is, no problem. So, but they're like, any other aircraft, immediately run to the shelter and cover your heads. And it never happened, except I think we were down. It was like day 36, maybe, on my season. It was right towards the, there were either four or five of us left. That's all that was left. And the plane, and they're like, run, run, run. And I just look up and I'm waving. And it got out. It was a crazy fan that had paid to have someone fly over to see who these final people were. And I remember on Survivor Sucks, like when I got back, Thunder D, the guy that had done the Grandma Lie with me, and he was like, did a plane fly over you guys? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, towards the end, why? He goes, it's on Survivor Sucks that someone said he flew in a plane over, and the final four, there was an old woman with blonde hair. that would be me. the old woman with blonde hair.
Yeah, I was thinking Lil's not blonde, but Tim, this is the extent to which people will go, and even to this day with Big Brother, because they film Big Brother on a sound stage in LA, right? Yes. Unlike they're not off on some island, and so it really is quite easy. People had skywriting messages, or even people just trying to. I think people would actually try to just yell things kind of over the fence.
Well, Big Brother, they get the planes with the message behind.
Right, that's what I mean. Right, yeah. And they have actually really messed up the game a few times.
Yes, they have. I loved it, but I hate it. I like if it had benefited the people I'm rooting for, I'm for it. If it didn't, then I'm totally against it.
Right.
In the circle, similarly, one of the things was we had to keep the windows closed all the time, which made it infernally hot.
Sure.
Because there would be fans outside screaming various people's names.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Because the whole thing was live.
Right. The same thing.
Relatively live.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Did anyone get like a bullhorn so that you could hear through the glass?
No. The worst there was actually the production's doing, and me. They gave me an alpine horn to blow, and I was delighted.
Yes.
And unfortunately, they didn't broadcast my joke. Do you want to know my joke?
I would love to,
because it's a little bit rude, but they allowed me to keep the horn in my apartment overnight, and in the morning I got up and it was still there, and I was so delighted, and I said, "Ooh, can I blow it again?" And they said, yes, you can. So I blew it again. I had no idea what time it actually was, but it did seem relatively early, and it made a stirring noise. And I said, well, the Queen gets up with bagpipes. I get up with a horn. And they didn't broadcast that, sadly. But Ella realized that because of this noise, which she could actually hear, she worked out which apartment I was in.
Ah.
And I think Woody and Ella then discussed it. But I had no idea about where anybody was or the geography of the flats at all.
Sure.
I was completely confused and slightly bored by it. So
what difference would it have made? Is that where
I don't think it would have made very much difference at all.
Yeah.
I don't think it matters.
That's all I would have cared about.
Yeah.
To a certain extent, that there was a point I thought, I don't want to hear these other people. I won't go anywhere near the window. I won't do that because I want the game to continue.
Right.
So that element of cheating isn't part of the winning. The winning thing is about being 2 steps ahead of production, if at all possible, so that
Sure.
what is production looking for. And is that within my character to provide? If it is, hey, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. Like, it sucks because, like, as evil as I am, I still cheating. I can't endorse. Like on Survivor later, hidden immunity idols are going to be introduced into the game, in which there's an idol in which, if you find it, you can play it and not be voted out that night. And it's like, it's a twist the game. It's elevating the game. And I understand all that, even though I like the pure form, I get it. I understand that's an argument for another day. However, people hide it in their bags, and then people go through their bags looking to see if they can find it. And I like, for the longest time, I'm just like, I cannot endorse that. I'm like, you're a cheater if you're going through someone's bags. I think you're, the hidden immunity idol was introduced 2005,
something like that.
2005, 2006. So it's now been 14 years. It's essentially taken me to coronavirus and everything else that's horribly happened in the year 2020 for me to finally say, okay, if I go back and play Survivor, I'm going to go through a bag, because at this point I'm the last person left to say I won't go through. Like, apparently I'm an idiot at this point.
I would hope you'd do it with aplomb. I would hope you find a twist.
Yeah.
You are the definitive bag snatcher.
Yeah. I just have a code that, like I feel like Dexter, with this code of killing people, but I do have a code is just like this is okay, this isn't okay, this is okay, this isn't okay. And I just think going through other people's shit is not okay.
So wait, I'm more evil than Jonny Fairplay?
Apparently. I mean, what I said is 2020, all bets are off. We got the Tiger King and coronavirus. I'll go through your bag now. I'm done.
Yeah, no, I just think that anything that's not against the rules of the game is okay to do in the game. Like I said, they could easily make a rule that you can't go through people's bags. The rule, as I understand it, is you can go through people's bags. You just can't steal anything. Yeah. So if that's the rule, take advantage of it. Don't leave your bag lying around.
Yeah, I don't know. As I said, it's like, hey, like I don't want you touching my shit, so I'm not going to touch yours.
All right, fair enough.
All right.
Then the other thing that we must discuss with Jonny before he leaves is we're going to jump to the reward challenge.
Okay, right before the reward challenge.
Okay, what else do you want to talk about, Jonny?
Just super quick. So it's been forever since I've watched an episode of Survivor this early into the run. And so my big takeaway was Jeff does a lot of his commentary post-production.
Oh, yes.
And he does not do, like, 2020 Jeff Probst. You get the, come on in, guys, today we're going to da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and you're just like I remember being out there on the island, and I'm just like, okay, let's see what he really does. And he did the, come on in, guys, da-da-da. And when he's done, it's like Scooby-Doo. What was that? And then he that's live to tape. They got it, and then cut. He says it again slowly, and then pause, and then you get up and walk around. He walks you through it, and then pause, and then one person from each tribe does the full walkthrough of the entire thing and asks whatever questions that they have. So from when he says, come on in, guys, till when the challenge starts, that's a good hour.
Of course.
It's not immediate. But watching this, I'm just like, he's not saying, like, all of this is post-production, all the verbiage he's using to describe, today's challenge, you're going to shoot at the target and the closest to the target. All that's post.
Yeah, of course.
It's like, what did he say out there? Because the guy was just in the 38 days I was playing, and I was back for day 39 for whatever. So for the entire time that I was out there, he flubbed one line in 38 days, and he didn't even flub it. Like, it was a challenge where we had to pour water into these canisters, and however he had said it, he wasn't happy with it. Like no one even know, we're looking at each other. He's just like, I'm gonna do that one more time. And we're just like, what happened? Did he drop an F-bomb and I missed it? Yeah. And he's just like, and he kind of explains just like, I just didn't like how I transition that sentence. That, there was just one thing that just bothered, and just like, and him knowing himself, pronouns pal, Jeff knowing Jeff was, he was like, I know I can do this perfect. And I know I can do it perfect in one more attempt. Let me just do it in one more attempt and make it perfect. And he did. And I was like, wow. I was like, this guy is amazing. And then I did Celebrity Fear Factor with Joe Rogan. And it was the complete, like, Joe Rogan comes out, he goes, today's stunt, you're going to go around in a circle. And he's just having production feeding the lines. I'm just like, this guy's on season 12 of Fear Factor and doesn't know that the next word after today's is stunt. And then after he finishes, he goes, cut and paste, motherfuckers. That's how you get paid. I was like, wow. I was like, this is the exact opposite of Jeff Probst.
Yeah, I'm always in awe of the professionals these anchor people. I just think that level of professionalism is gorgeous.
It is.
And say let's just go again. And I mean, I hope I get to that. I hope I get to that stage. But you only do it by doing this sort of thing. This is your job. This is what you do all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm thinking that was someone other, because I would be shocked not to imagine that the original footage that they filmed was probably pretty darn perfect, and then someone's like, hey, if we do this in post, it'll be and I think conversation by committee is like yeah versus Jeff does have such a hands-on approach now. Jeff's like, no, that's not, like, in the moment is your money.
Absolutely. And more than that, you can fix so many things in post, but it's so much effort. I mean, this is what I do. I do graphics and animation and stuff, and I mean, I've got 1 or 2 series which I've been doing things with, and I know they come to me to fill in the bit where they can't glue the story together without something. So I'm the bit of animation they shove in to glue their storyline together, and it's incredibly hard work on my part. They've had a discussion. They thought, oh, we can do that with Tim. But then it's 2 weeks work without any sleep.
Or you can just do it properly the first time.
You can just do it properly the first time, be really well scripted, and learn your lines.
Yeah, and that really stood out to me. I said that really stood out to me. But I'm willing to bet money, though, that Jeff didn't flub line. They were just like, oh, it'll be so much better. Like, we can piece this together. And it's just like, the 2 extra seconds of Jeff sitting there saying it versus you being able to tie 2 seconds together and him do the overdub was not worth it. Absolutely.
And to give people that option, here is the option. And you can dub something later if you want to, if you prefer that. But to actually have that moment and to learn your lines, to get it right, and to get the right emphasis in the right place, and using adverbs as opposed to adjectives and all these other funny things, to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
I just think it's a spectacular skill. It's and I'm a bit natty about grammar and presentation anyway. I would enjoy it, and I feel so in front of a large crowd. I feel more alive in some ways. So I have no problem with that, but I know that you just need to be doing it.
Yeah. So that stood out. It stuck out to me like a sore thumb versus where we're at in the evolution of right, because I don't even think there's an overdub. I know there's not I don't think there's a single overdub post-production audio on season 7. So I know that it's whatever practice that they're doing here ends very soon. Like I think as I said, I don't know if it's Jeff raising his hand going, why are you doing this?
In your 2 seasons, Johnny, were there more cameras to pick up the moments so that the key moments were actually caught on camera?
No, I feel that they pretty much. I mean, when you go out there for a challenge, there's a crew. I think it's about 300 people total.
Yes.
It's huge.
Yes.
I mean, like when you see this little corner of wherever that we're having this challenge, the outside of the baseball diamond is all people.
I see.
There's about 300 people staring at us, like 8 people doing, like it's insane. They're not missing anything.
Yeah,
like,
I think that was really a problem.
Camera.
That was a problem. I want to say only in Borneo. When I go back and rewatch, the next few seasons, I'll keep my eyes peeled. But generally, yeah, I think they only had this problem in Borneo. And again, I'm assuming they had a much smaller budget, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they had no clue that the show would do anything. Like, I mean, it originally came out as a summer show. I mean, summer's where you throw the shit that's not good enough for fall or spring.
Mm-hmm. But the point is that they realized they had a problem. They had the budget to fix it, and it's just, like I said, it hasn't happened for a very, very long time.
Yeah, but now, as far as enough people out there, I think that issue stopped. Season 2 from then on, they had just as many stuff, like from season 7 to season 16. Or those my 2 seasons?
Yeah, those were your 2.
The only difference was our first challenge on season 16 was a recreation of our first challenge on season 7. And the first time we did it, took about 2 hours. The second time we did it took about 20 minutes. Like they had, and I got there, they're just like, "Hey, it's your first challenge." I'm just like, this looks like a Nickelodeon Double Dare version of my challenge. We went like a mile and a half on Pearl Islands to the end of this thing. And like, I could see the finish line. I'm just like, it's right there. It's 20 feet. That's not a mile and a half. They're like, it's just like your challenge. I'm like, in what way?
I assume you're saying it looks like your other challenge, and it's just cheaper and easier to film it that way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if the challenge is gonna give you 5 or 4 minutes of television, why not film 4 minutes or 8 minutes of television versus filming us for an hour and a half?
Yes.
Right.
I mean, because those elements that were tough and that were dramatic were squeezed into those 20 feet versus, going a mile and a half. There were plenty of stretches of us just going a mile and a half. So it's like, cut. Yeah, so it's smart. I get it, but at the same time, like, even though we lost that first challenge on fans versus favorites, I when it was over, if we had won that challenge, I wouldn't have been like, oh my God, this is the greatest moment of my life. I can't believe this. Versus on Pearl Islands, when we won that first challenge, that's the top 3 moments of my entire life ever. My top 3 moments are the birth of Piper, the birth of Madeline, and me winning that first challenge on Survivor Pearl Islands. That's it. I mean, like, that tops the grandma lie.
I was going to say better than grandma lie.
What's that?
I'm saying better than the grandma lie, because I thought
of my greatest high. I mean, because the grandma lie was just like, the work was before.
Yep.
I just did it. Like, the work was getting to that point. Whereas that first challenge, I mean, it went back and forth and back. And I mean, when we won that challenge, we were crying, we were throwing up. I don't think there was an emotion that we didn't feel in that time period. And I mean, and them all coming together at the very end in celebration was, I mean, it is the biggest high you could ever have. So.
Gosh.
All right. So let's move on to the next topic, which we obviously must discuss with Jonny. We're going to jump to the reward challenge. Right? And they get, you shoot an arrow at a target, and the winner gets to see, so that they get to see a video from home. So what they do, and they've done this in different ways, often now with these family things, but let's not go there right now because Jonny has limited time. So they all practice, they get to shoot at a target. But before they actually do I am going around in circles, excuse me. They show them the brief snippets of the video. They say whoever gets the arrow closest to the target will get to see their entire video. And then when they show the snippets of each, to each person, with Jenna, we get to the end. I'm sorry, right? Your family didn't send in a video. So, Tim, I mean, what was I think we already spoke about this bit, but besides just being horribly sad for her, did you have any other reactions?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I was incensed. I just thought this is a production company that hasn't done its work. It is inconceivable that a production company would put somebody on the show if they haven't actually got the got that sort of video together in some form. It's just cruel and inefficient. It's unprofessional.
Well, I'm gonna make you more angry, because Mark Burnett has actually not only admitted this, but kind of bragged about it in his book. Jenna's tape showed up 2 days later. Apparently her mother had been traveling or something. So the tape did show up, and they made the decision not to show it to her.
Yeah, I just think it's abhorrent. I think it's unprofessional. I think it's unfair. It made nice television, but it's cruel. It's exploitative. It's all the things that I disapprove of. It makes great TV, and it's emotionally hard hitting, but it's manipulative in a way that's not actually that necessary. You can get the same response actually by playing fair. On the one hand, we've got with us the person who is the master of deception. And on the other hand, we've got this thing which also seems about deception, but there's a difference. The difference is, here we've got Jonny, you're a character within the show. And here with the Jenna thing, this is about the deception of the show. This is the thing that I dislike more than anything else, where these people, 300 odd people, or however large the crew is, are manipulating people for entertainment. This is gladiatorial. This is utterly disgusting.
But Tim, so I'm just trying to understand what you're saying. I don't know. You're blaming production for the fact that Jenna's tape didn't get to, because I don't blame them for that.
Oh, I do. They should have been in a car and getting that tape. That's their job. If Jenna has got to that stage, if Jenna has been that good and has got to that stage in the program, their job, the job of some silly little office person, is to get into a car and go and find Jenna's parents and get a tape, no matter what that tape is. That is their job. She is providing entertainment. She is employed by them to provide jolly good entertainment for them. And they can't be bothered, they can't be asked to get off their backside and actually do the work. It's disgraceful. It's disgusting. Full stop.
What do you think, Jonny? Because like I said, I
know I'm both. I mean, like before, number one, and this I feel the most important. This is great television.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this entire episode does such an amazing job of giving you all these extra layers of all these characters.
Mm-hmm.
So, and not only the characters themselves, but the modus operandi behind those characters. I mean, like Jervis, you learn, he has the daughter, he has the girlfriend, he's playing for that kid. But you also learn strategically now he sees another single parent out there, and that is now his new enemy, because that's his shtick. And that's the final speech that he's giving. So he has to subtract that final speech from someone else that could give a comparable speech. You learn that Greg's sister is also insane.
Right. Yeah, we're going to get there, but I just trust me, we're going to get there. you learn that Rudy is very perceptive to the fact that that Greg's sister is also equally, if not more, insane, and also that incest is not good.
Oh God, yes. Well, that's another.
So I wanted to go to Jenna first, but then let's just take a step back and look at the rest, because it is always, I always find it very, very interesting to just see people's families.
Yeah. So and it's so like I love this reward for me as a player, in that I could get everything if I thirst this love from home, and I need that at this point of the game, I get everything I need from that little snippet.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I need. This right here as a reward. I do not want to win.
Oh yeah, that's another thing, Tim, because in other seasons, but what generally happens now, like with Jonny, there was just one winner. Normally what happens now is that the person who wins is then allowed to bring X number of people, and they get additional time with their family members also. Yeah. So that's why Jonny is saying this is a reward you do not want to win. And I have told I have a son who, I'm trying to get him on the show, and I have told him, don't you dare win this reward, because
I have no desire to go back. Yeah, this challenge is the Jonny Fairplay will not win at any cost challenge. Like if you want to see the worst performance of Jonny Fairplay and or whoever he's with, I am not winning this challenge. But I think it's super easy to not win this challenge with the tape, because as I said, if all you need is a little love from home, me watching 45 seconds of Piper and Madeline saying, "Daddy, we love you," is just as good as hearing 4 minutes of your mind is so far gone at this point of the game, through malnourishment and everything, and the psychological chess that's being played, everything that's happening. It's taking its toll at this point in the game. That's why this loved ones thing is set up where it is in the game. Mm-hmm. And so, as I said, I can get all the love I need from 45 seconds in a tape and be done. If your loved one is there, that's a little harder to be like, oh, you're right there within arm's reach, but I still don't. I would still prefer not to have you, because it will, I want to bring you $1 million when I'm done with this. So but as I said, I think this is a real easy challenge to not win, get everything you need from it, and then sending back the tape home. By the time they get that tape, you're home.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, I mean, Joe's like, I'm going to run and overnight it the next day. I was like, well, why can't you overnight it today, motherfucker? I mean, if it's so important.
Time frames are important in establishing a drama.
Yeah.
But so you don't agree with me about the professionalism.
Well, I do agree. As I said, I see both sides. They're making a television show.
I don't doubt that it makes great TV, by the way.
They're making a television show, and I think this moment is magnified times 8,000. The fact that she did not get that tape. So.
Oh, yeah, but see, I kind of, like I said, I distinguish between the original fact that they didn't get the tape, which I am willing to put that on Jenna's mom. Like I said, I'm not sure, obviously I don't know how hard production tried, and maybe they decided at some point, this is good TV. But I was going to, like I said, you can change my mind, but I was always assuming that at least a good chunk of the fault lies with Jenna's mom, who is, again, taking care of Jenna's twins. And, there may have been reasons why she couldn't do it. Whereas the decision that Mark Burnett made 2 days later, when they had the tape in their hands and they decided not to show it to her, I look at a completely different light. And they didn't even have to do it necessarily on the show. Right, because they have their storyboards and they know what they want to do in every episode, and so maybe they don't want to bring the TV back on the island and go there, but just take her herself. Put her on a boat, take her to another island, show her the video.
Yeah,
and even if they want to lie to the viewers at that point and not tell us, right?
Well,
I'd be okay with that.
It drives her to like she's. I think everything worked out the way it was supposed to. I think they should have worked harder to get that tape to her when everyone else got theirs. But if it shows up 2 days late, I show it to her when she gets voted out. But I don't show it to her during the game. I think right now she has a drive inside of her based on not getting that tape. It's just like, man, I want to see my kids that much more. I ain't quitting to see them. I'm winning this game, taking them home $1 million and seeing them.
Right, but couldn't. So she was able to do that, but I think a lot of other people in that other situation would. And even I think it was Jervis who said, was questioning whether she really wants to be there. And yes, she shakes it off and she comes back, even harder, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
But for a lot of people, I think that would just break them, and they would just.
Well, and if they had broken her, I think they would have shown her the tape, but it didn't. It drove her. So why would you subtract that drive from her? Like this is making Jenna Lewis a better player, I think.
Yeah, no, and I hear what you're saying. And you're saying, so if she was just kind of lying around crying and not making good TV, then they would have had to show it to her.
They would have said, hey, Jenna, come over here. Yep. So right, don't disrupt that. Don't break something that's running full capacity.
Okay. Yes. You've convinced me. Yeah. All right, Jonny, I know that you have to leave. So I want you to, give us everything about what's coming up and Survivor NSFW, et cetera. But first, I just want you to show Tim your T-shirt because he can't see you wearing. Yeah, it says Richard and Rob. For those who are not watching the video, he's wearing the T-shirt. There's Richard and Rob and Jonny and Russell. For these are the big four Survivor villains.
Oh, are they? I just thought there were 4 random names. I just happened to throw on a shirt available at JonnyFairplay.com.
Yeah. Oh, and I am wearing, of course, the Challenge Monster shirt. I had to wear it this week, Jonny, because this is the shirt that started it all.
Yes. Right? There you go. So also available at JonnyFairplay.com. Remember, no H in Jonny. And with every purchase, you get a phone call from me, Jonny Fairplay, thanking you for your purchase. And now what do we have coming up? Today's Tuesday, so dropping tonight at midnight 01 Eastern Standard Time in the Americas will be Wendell Holland and we will be casting a America tribe to compete against an Australian Survivor tribe. So we'll be looking at all the seasons, all the competitors. I have a list of like 12 people. Wendell has a list, or actually, I think our tribes are supposed to be 10 people. I think we both showed up with 14 people. So we give our honorable mentions, we give our people in order, and we eventually get to a 10-person roster, 5 females, 5 males, to compete against a 10-person roster of Australian survivors. And we'll be having Flick and Dirty Harry on in the next week or so to give the Australian version of who will compete against this U.S. tribe. But just watching U.S. Survivor versus Australian Survivor, it's really fascinating. They're immensely bigger than us. So size is a factor in determining. So if you're listening to the podcast, and we explain it, I think we go into very thorough detail, but it's just like, I would choose so-and-so. It's just like, well, that's great, but Adam Klein would be used as a toothpick for most of these guys. So no, if you're expecting Adam Klein on this list, he will not be there. Who knows if Jonny Fairplay makes the cut? You never.
Yes. So for people who don't know or don't watch Australian Survivor, it's it's more physical even than American Survivor.
Much more. Yeah.
Right. And they don't have as many challenges with balance. They have them, but there is a much bigger advantage for the big, strong guys in Australia versus America. Yeah. And also, this is not as crazy as it sounds, Tim, because there has been one player from America who played in Australia.
Oh, right. No, so what you're doing is a sort of fantasy football thing.
Kind of fantasy football. We're putting together like. There's been rumor in innuendo that there potentially down the road could be a U.S. versus Australian Survivor season. Not here, because in America we don't care about anyone else other than ourselves. I mean, but
the Australians want it.
But anything you see in American culture versus Australian Survivor, they appreciate the U.S. version of the show. And it feels as though they would be much more willing to do a U.S. versus Australian season. So to be proactive, I would love to be a part of this kind of season. Wendell Holland would like to be a part of this kind of season. So why don't we cast who should participate on the U.S. side of things? Let Australian Survivor see this and just say, hey, here's an argument. Not only for a U.S. versus Australia season, but here's an argument for the 10 people that should go against your 10 best and why these are the 10 best people. And I think we give a very valid argument why the 10 people that we eventually decide upon are the ideal candidates for the Australian version of Survivor.
And do you have any ideas about who might win?
No. That's crazy talk, Professor Tim. I mean, how many times can I say my name in one podcast?
Yeah, really.
But you'll have to bring something further to the meal. It'd have to be a deceit.
I'm ready. I'm ready for deceit.
Well, please, when you do it, get in touch with me first.
Please, I will.
Johnny, I've always wanted to go to Australia, so
there you go. You just need a reason. So me too. So
I will facilitate any lie you want to tell. Just saying.
There you have it. So we have that dropping at 12:01. Oh my God, I buried the lead. This is a huge deal and calls for celebration. And I meant to start the show with this, and shame on me. This is the 200th audio version of a Survivor NSFW podcast ever. This is number 200 right
awesome.
now.
Wow.
This is it.
Oh, happy birthday.
Is that crazy?
Yeah, the bicentenary.
Yeah, this episode, because I was talking, because it's determined by when you entered in. So if this had dropped, so Matt Bischoff and who has been with me for over years, just like, were you planning anything special? And I was looking at the calendar. I'm just like, yeah, I'm gonna be on with Karen Eisenberg and Professor Tim for a very special Survivor NSFW Rewind, which will coincide with the 200th audio episode of the podcast.
I should probably go back and listen to your first few podcasts to make me feel better.
Oh, right. Me too.
We should have baked a cake. It would have been such an opportunity.
As I said, I buried the lead. But I wanted to surprise you guys, and I felt of no better place. I mean, this right here shows the evolution of the Survivor NSFW franchise, and that, if you had told me 3 years ago that I would be doing a Survivor rewatch with a patron, which I wouldn't have known what the word meant, and a professor in the UK who was also on a reality show based on a social media experiment gone wrong, I would have said, that's crazy talk.
Well, it's a great joy. It's a great joy.
Yes. So, and a lot of people had the over under on the number of shows that Survivor NSFW would put out, I think at 4. So we've exceeded that by 196.
It does happen, Tim. There have been other players who have tried to do a podcast and some have, with greater or lesser amounts of success. Yeah. Because a lot of people look at this and, it looks very easy. And people are like, I can do this too, right? I can, extend my 15 minutes of fame. I'm just going to talk into a microphone. How hard could that be? And the answer is, as we both know, it's a lot harder than it looks. Right? I feel like it's like a duck on the water, right? You're sitting on the surface, everything looks calm, and underneath, you're paddling furiously.
That's what people sharks.
Absolutely. One of the things you've got to do is watch the program before you go on air.
It's work.
And someone saying, "Oh my god! I've got to watch Survivor."
Yeah, I was up at 7 a.m. because I'm a juggler. So I'm happy to celebrate 200 audio episodes here, and also on the Patreon side of things. And once again, for any of you guys that are fans of this podcast and the once a week Survivor NSFW Wednesday show and everything else, we have a Patreon available at patreon.com/Survivor NSFW, in which we do bonus content. We do a weekly Q&A in which, you're added to a secret Facebook group and you're allowed to ask questions each week. The episode that dropped on Sunday was an over 2-hour question and answer podcast. We also grabbed someone from the secret Facebook group and they join us to ask questions. And so that's a lot of fun. But last night I recorded with Zach Hacker, and that'll be dropping later this week on Patreon, probably Thursday. We did a watch along of the movie The Scorned. written and produced by Rob Sestrino and my other good friend Eric Middleman. Eric Middleman joins us for the watch along, and it's a horror movie. Which if you guys have never seen it, you get to see it, and it's a watch along with it, and it's with myself. Ethan Zahn plays a crazy person. Bachelor Bob plays the villain. Trishelle from the real world's there. Jenna Lewis and Stephen Hill are two of the main characters. It's so funny. Burton plays a bartender. if you've ever wanted to see someone look more uncomfortable ever, it's Burton as a bartender.
So you don't know who most of these people are, obviously, but Jenna is Jenna. And Jenna from the season is the Jenna Lewis.
She's the main character.
So if you have any interest, you might want to watch that.
Yeah. So we did the watch along last night, and we were nice enough in that we probably only alienated 6 members of the cast that will not join us for a future watch along of it. but I think the vast others will join us, and we will also, as a result of this, me, Zach, and Eric will be doing a 8-episode Castaway watch along of the reality show Kill Reality, in which we're all living in the house together, and then from living in the house, we were going to make the movie at the same time. And Eric will tell you, as a producer of both the reality show and the movie, how that was the worst idea in the history of television to have a house in which we're sponsor-fed alcohol ad nauseum, secretly doing drugs ad nauseum, and then attempting to make a movie ad nauseum.
I've never seen either of them, and this will be fun.
So if you're looking for a reason to go Patreon, now is the time. That is the time. We also have some sticker kits. So there will, for anyone interested in the sticker tier, there will not be 1 but 2 stickers, including in your sticker pack. Look for that second sticker to be announced later this week. But no, we have new T-shirts at JonnyFairplay.com and all that. But as I said, the best and easiest way to support the podcast is please become a patron. Even for 1 month, it makes a difference. And I think you'll be shocked at all the bonus content. I mean, there's over 200 and some posts of original content, not from the free side, but just bonus stuff that we do each and every week, because we love to interact with you. Our time to interact. I mean, we have thousands and thousands of listeners and viewers mostly on the audio, but also on the video side. And if we wanted to answer all those questions, it's not possible. So for those of you that do become patrons, we answer each and every one of your questions each and every week. And it means a lot to be able to have your support and to thank you for that support.
Yeah. And then also, I'm not sure if I'm glad you, because I think a lot of people don't really even understand what goes on in the patron group. Besides all of that, there were things like last night we were all playing, Survivor trivia, and Jonny was there.
Last night they did what was the thing? They casted third time.
That's right. It wasn't trivia, right? I'm sorry. I get literally. I mean, but we do so many things. I get
trivia on Thursday night.
Right. So, and this was right. We were talking about this, like you said, fantasy football. We do this all the time. We cast these, imaginary seasons. And so people made lists of, the people that they would have, and it was a specific, list. It's people who have played exactly twice and never won.
Yeah.
We have 600.
I allegedly was the first unanimous decision to be cast on Third Time's the Charm season. If only I had a podcast to spread that news. Oh, wait, guys, pay attention. Third Time's a Charm.
Yeah, but my point is, if you want to get to know Jonny, right, it really is, it's not that hard. You buy a T-shirt, you become a patron, and stick around if you like it.
So anyway, patreon.com/Survivor NSFW, JonnyFairplay.com for T-shirts. Do the patron thing. If you really want to do the T-shirt, as I said, we have some new T-shirts. We have some really fun stuff. Peek behind the curtain. We have a Guns N' Roses inspired T-shirt coming up later this week. I'm really excited about. I think Karen is too. Professor Tim, you guys have plenty more to cover on this episode, and I'm excited to listen. Thank you so much for having me join you and Karen.
Well, thank you for having us.
Yeah, and Jonny, I'm so glad that we finally worked this out.
Yes, and
family visit, like we decided. Jonny and I had discussed it, and we just I know that you and Jim has been chomping at the bit to meet Jonny, and Jonny said, I want to do the family visit, which made perfect sense. So I'm glad that.
Well, I'll be back for the feedback episode, and Professor Tim, we will be talking extra on after that. So. I
look forward to that.
We might make that patron content, our bonus conversation.
Yes, we do. I probably ought to design a T-shirt for you. I was thinking of that.
Yeah. I would love. I think I need a T-shirt for you. So we'll work on that.
We might have to do a T-shirt for Bay.
I have unlimited space. I assure you. If I pull all the T-shirts that don't sell from my website, there's only 6 T-shirts left, so we'll be fine.
All right, Jonny.
I'll do something. Have fun.
Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. So that's the old days, Tim, where it's just the two of us.
Karen, you're in a different part of the States to Jonny.
Yes. We're not that far away. We're probably about 5 hours by car.
Right. But a different time zone.
No. He and I are in the same time zone. Like I said, so this is the middle. Yeah, he is in the border of, I think he's in Virginia, but southern Virginia, close to North Carolina. But it is very much still in the same time zone. But like I said, because he has an actual real job where he normally has to be at, at 2:00 in the afternoon.
So if I got in my TARDIS, Virginia counts as British territory, doesn't it?
Yeah, and if you kind of and if you land in like northern Virginia, like in the DC suburbs, you'd be like 2 hours from each of us. So it would not be hard to.
The States is such a beautiful place. I'm so always in awe of it. I think just how big it is. Having also been to another big country on the other side of the world. It's
which is that you're referring to Australia? Where have you been?
I'm referring to Russia.
Oh, that's right. Russia. Okay. Yeah, that's even larger.
I've never been to Australia.
Me either.
No, or New Zealand, and I was getting reports sort of every week from New Zealand while we were in COVID from Woody, and it just seems such a beautiful area of the world, but it's beyond me. Maybe I should have gone over there while they were filming Lord of the Rings. I could have been one of the blue wizards that never gets mentioned in Lord of the Rings.
All right, so let's take a step back and go back to we'll hit the rest of the episode. So I'm just going to start with, this was not in the episode, but again from Mark Burnett's book. Apparently, they came back from I just wanted to talk a little bit about the fallout from the Gretchen Tribal Council, because it was
the whole of that first part of the episode was filled with that, wasn't it? Yeah.
Right. But apparently when they came back, Rich basically said to everybody, which ones of you sons of bitches wrote my name on a card last night?
Oh, yes. But that was the same in the show as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm saying, but apparently, my point is that it was much more even than what we saw on the show. But it really
that's why when Richard says that in the show, 4 of them stick up their hands like a sort of Spartacus moment.
Right. But the point is, people were rattled, and America was rattled, because we talked about this last week. This is the point where Survivor stops being just this night's outdoorsy show, and people suddenly realize what's going on here and just how nasty it might get.
Yes.
And we also have this great quote from Sean. He says, "There's really no reason other than strategy to vote Gretchen off."
Yes.
Other than strategy. Well, that's the whole point. And it kind of shows just how much Sean doesn't understand what's going on.
And he also talks about the bloodbath.
Yeah.
And he's the one who gives this episode its title. He's the one who first talks about duplicity. I think it's mentioned twice, but I probably wouldn't have used the word duplicity. I would have used the word mendacity. And it's not something I'm keen on. But as I was trying to explain to Rob, it's not so much to Jonny. It's not so much the mendacity of the players as the manipulation and mendacity of production. So the thing that got me really about the whole episode was the Jenna absence of a tape, because I don't know whether you know, but when you go on one of these things, you have all these forms to fill out, and in my case it was all done very quickly, but you still have to fill out all these forms, and one of the bits of the form is if we get to a point in the show where somebody would send you a message, who would it be? Who would you like to send you a message? This is already in the forms,
right?
So it's just inconceivable to me that a producer, and there'd be so many of these producers, junior producers, has not actually ticked that box and said we've got the we've got the video, or we've got an arrangement to get that video. Right. It just seems to me to be lazy filmmaking and deeply manipulative for an effect. That effect was real. I mean, I know you said that the video didn't arrive, and then it arrived 2 days later. With the greatest respect, I just don't believe it. I think it was there.
Yeah. So I don't even know if Jonny would go that dark on it. I don't think that happened. Like I said, I certainly understand the idea that they should have tried harder to get it.
No, I could see a very nice scenario when I was watching it. I think, oh, they're saying you don't have the video, and then when you win, we're going to produce your children. In reality, we don't have the video. What we have is your children. Here's a great television moment, and that would have been great. I could have enjoyed that. I just felt cheated. I felt manipulated, and I felt she was manipulated, and I didn't want to be part. That's the area where I just find I have sort of emotional, moral outrage, and it's never against people. It's always against institutional malpractice, and this is it.
And I don't disagree with you, but I'm just saying, if this has got you up in arms, this is nothing compared to some of the other things that they have done to people in the name of making TV.
But this is one of the things and Jonny also mentioned it. So I think we're on exactly the same page. We've got to that page in the book by completely different routes, but he also used the word cheap entertainment, and it is cheap entertainment.
Oh, absolutely.
There's no question it's entertainment. There's no question that it's entertaining, and there's no question that it's going to survive. Right. But there's equally no question that this is probably the cheapest form of television in existence.
Right. Even though that they have 300 people, this is what's so amazing. And it really is with Modern Survivor. They have at least 300 people involved. And even and you can see the very elaborate, well, you haven't seen it, but these very elaborate challenges and sets, and, and the tribal council, is the same basic idea now, but it's amped up to 11 in terms of just how slick it looks and all that. And even with all of that, this is still way cheaper than any other way you would make an hour of primetime television.
Absolutely. You can go back to the 1980s and the cost of Dynasty. Mm-hmm. It was just staggering. And it's still. I was looking at it on DVD the other day. It's still phenomenal television, and the remake of Dynasty doesn't get anywhere near it. It's just you can feel the money in that television drama, and you need money in order to make good TV drama. What's extraordinary about reality TV is actually you get by on precious little cash.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you've still got 1 hour, 2 hours, or in the case of Big Brother, days.
But I am just so happy that you are starting to come around on this whole idea of strategy, and that, yes, it's appalling, but it's also fun.
Oh,
Look, Rudy, by this episode, Rudy also, who had very, very strong, feelings against alliances, and actually refused.
Who's the one who said get rid of Gretchen?
Right. No, but he actually, this is where Rudy has come around. He's right. He's the one who went over after Gretchen. He woke up. He said, okay, this is what you do to win the money. And, so I'm going to do it. So I was hoping you were going to get to this point because, again, if you're horrified, then this is no fun.
I'm afraid I do. I think Rudy was played as well because Richard knew full well that he had to get rid of Gretchen as well. I think Rudy was played so that Rudy was taking the fall for that decision.
Well, but I wouldn't say taking the fall. I think all four of them, got on the same page. But the point is, at this point, Rudy is a full member of the alliance, not only voting with them, which he's been doing for a bit, but actually scheming and discussing who should go off and all that.
Yeah. But if I were Richard, I would let Rudy take the initiative there, and I'm sure he did. Richard is very, very canny. He knows how to play people.
Yes, you're saying you said Rudy, like make him think it's his decision.
Yeah.
Interesting. But again, it was not that
and
hard.
It also strengthens the bond between those two as well. Right. But I hated Greg's talk about kittens.
We'll get there.
I'm so sorry.
We're going to get there in a second. No, because I just wanted to, the other thing that Kelly says, that, so when you talk about people coming around on this, Kelly says, if you want to make lifelong friends, go to summer camp.
Oh, yeah. No, I disagree. I disagree with her.
Really?
As Jonny has demonstrated, he has got lifelong friends out of this show.
Yeah, yes, but I'm not sure if he has so many. He has a couple of lifelong friends from his season, right? The people that he chose to stick with.
Yeah.
And then there are other people who...
And people like Jenny and so on. And
right.
It's... the point is not the game or winning which produces that that friendship. It's the process of being part of this extraordinary process of being filmed and manipulated and produced.
Often these people do make deep bonds, and not only even in the same season, but some of Johnny's close friends. Just last weekend, he was out. Other people who've played the game in other seasons.
Yeah, you share this bond with a very, very small group of people, and even diehard fans simply cannot grasp the intensity of being the subject of a show, because that's what you are. You are the no matter how many producers you've got around you, no matter how many gifted camera people you've got, no matter how brilliant is the concept of the show, it's only as good as the contestants.
Right.
And so the show is dependent on the airtime that you are providing.
But my point is, obviously, there are strong bonds formed, and even among people who hated each other in the game, often become friends. But I think, Kelly's point is the reason that quote is so important is because the point is that when you're playing the game, I feel like you can't have your actions be governed by, we're never going to be friends after this if I vote you off. I feel like you need to just play as hard as you want to play and not worry about these people who, to be honest, you just met less than a month ago.
Absolutely. I mean, there was a sequence in the circle where I voted off a lady called Jan, and in reality, it was within an hour she came to my room. I didn't expect to see her, and we hit it off so well. And she was one of the people that I'd hardly spoken to really. The system didn't really allow us to have conversations. We had a few conversations, so we knew we had common ground. But we have such common ground; it's absurd. But that wasn't the sort of the story that was being played out at that point in the show.
Right.
But that's a friendship which has survived and which will survive.
Yeah, and I assume also with Woody and Ella and those people, it's clear that you're still very close.
I'm with James particularly.
Right,
Joe,
it can happen, like, even if the people that you didn't play closely with, because Woody and Ella were your allies, until the end, and James was not. Maybe you thought he was, but obviously he wasn't.
No. James was my ally. This is the point. James could have got rid of me at any point. He didn't want to because, and you say, why didn't he want to get rid of Tim? Because Tim was the first person. chop off the head of the snake. It would have made much more sense to do that, to decapitate the snake. And no, because the bit which you weren't shown was really this intense relationship that James and I already had, which wasn't going to change. It was deeper than the relationship I had with Georgina, for example. But that relationship was one which was produced and shown. So and Georgina by that point was angry with me anyway. So I think, why did I survive? I survived because I'd established a very close bond with James already.
We saw a bit of that, but we didn't see nearly. So what was presented to us on TV, I feel like by the end it was you and Ella and Woody, and then James on the other side. And like you said, obviously they're telling a story, right?
Yeah. And this is what I want them to do. So I want them to tell a story, but I also want them to do their job and do their background and their homework and earn their money and look after it properly. And I feel that in the Survivor, in this particular case, they betrayed Jenna.
No, I hear you. I definitely hear you. Like I said, I was not really putting as much of the blame on them until I saw that the tape showed up and they made the decision not to show up. But I think, like I said, Jonny has convinced me. Right, they were making good TV, and it wasn't because it was not making her so depressed that she couldn't function. Because again, I'm a single mother. I mean, my kids are grown now, but I very much empathize with her. And I can't even imagine what it would be like for me to get on a show like this and not be able to have that little snippet of connection, with my family. But yeah, like I said, but that's why it's good TV. If it had been anybody else, right, it probably wouldn't have packed the punch. And that's why you really jumped. You went beyond Jonny and I. You really think that the tape was there all along. I was not willing to go that far. I was not far. I'm not saying
they made a judgment call. I think they were going to do it with somebody, and I thought let's just see if we can do something with Jenna. Maybe the tape wasn't that interesting.
But also just remember, this is 2000. This is the very beginning of reality TV. Yeah. They're definitely that duplicitous now. The question is, were they that duplicitous back in 2000? I don't think that they were that sophisticated. I don't think they were sophisticated enough to think of that.
Oh, Karen, look.
No, I'm saying in 2000, not now. I'm saying
somebody the power. You give somebody the power of God. That's what we've done to these producers. Why are they not going to use it? They were as mendacious then as they are now.
No, I'm not saying mendacious. I'm saying just sophisticated and experienced enough to understand that this is a good way to make TV. I think this happened to them accidentally, and they realized we stumbled on a gold mine.
Yes.
And that's why when the tape showed up, they decided not to show it to her.
I think the tape had already shown up.
Yeah, well, we're going to agree on that. So back to the episode, which we're finished about 6:00 by the time we're going. So the one thing we see, I'm going to try to just hit the highlights here, but this is important that the women are bonding, and we do seem to see the beginnings of a possible second alliance, right? When the women talk about the possibility of voting together, and then immediately. Once again, we have
I thought that was extraordinary. I thought it was a boy thing to bond over crabs. I remember when I was a boy. That wasn't supposed to be innuendo.
I don't think I get it, Tim, because but I don't think anybody calls crabs anymore. Sorry.
Right.
I got it. I doubt very much that many of our listeners.
Remember when I was a boy. I used to go crabbing in the North Sea. And with my brother in a little bucket, and we catch little crabs, and I thought that was great fun, really. So I found that moment quite entertaining. But there were the squeamish moments. There was the crab, then there was what I thought was a little shark, but in fact it was a catfish. I ought to recognize that.
Yeah, I don't know my fish very much. And they do also in Burnett's book, they go into great detail that this day he caught this and this day he caught this. And like I said, I can tell the difference between, a shark and a fish and a stingray. But if you want to show me a fish with fins and say this is an X, I don't know my fish that well.
No, me neither. Me neither.
But the thing that's the two important things here that we need to get is, first of all, like I said, that there is some discussion of a women's alliance. And the reason that this is so important, which you don't know because you haven't been around for the last 20 years, is that the fear of the women's alliance is something that to this day is a big issue in Survivor, in Big Brother, whatever. The fear is not that the men are going to get together, but the fear is that the women are going to get together.
Why?
And again, it's funny because it's not even that it's been so successful, but it's always just a thing that they feel. And you could talk about the gender dynamics of this. I'm not really qualified to speak on that, but it's very, very much a thing. That is there going to be the women's alliance? And then we see almost immediately Sue says, yeah, I already got my alliance. This isn't going to happen. Now, but this is, again, because this is 2000, what would happen in 2020 is she would say yes to the women also. Right. Yes. And then frantically try to juggle the two alliances and then at some point get caught out and be sent home. Right. So we haven't gotten to that point yet. She just says, and to be fair, I mean, she doesn't say yes. There's no formal alliance. I don't feel like Jenna could go back and say, Sue promised to vote, a certain way. But Sue certainly wants them to think that she's on board. And at the same time, she's saying, yeah, I'm not on board. I already got my alliance. So that's important. And then the other thing that I wanted to focus on is the food situation. And even just the fact that this is when the food becomes, and it's clear that Rich was doing this deliberately, but we only become aware, I feel like, in this episode, just how deliberately this is. That, I mean, yes, obviously he knew that feeding people would help him in the game. Yeah. But I think he really
talked about it in the meeting at the end. And he's very his response then is very crafted. Yeah, he's actually sending a message to everybody else that he's going to keep producing the food. Right, this is more important than alliances. Blah 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 blah. Right. It's propaganda.
It's effective propaganda because if he's the only thing between you and not starvation, because we've talked about this, they won't let you starve. But obviously, if you're eating 200 or 300 calories a day at worst of rice, versus if you can supplement that with and it's not like they have one little fish. I mean, he's bringing a lot of food.
But don't have lots of fruit as well.
Right, but even though there can be more or less on that, depending on the season, which season. But the point is that but still having the fish, even if there's plenty of fruit, right? There's something about meat and also just the protein, and then especially if you're going to compete in the challenges, etc. Right. So the point is that people might hate Rich, and people might start to get the whys about this alliance, and is this going to be good for for my game? Well, half of them aren't even playing a game, so I shouldn't say that. But I'm just saying he wanted to make himself indispensable, and it's not a bad idea. And again, it has been copied by others. I'm not sure if anybody's done it as well.
So those fish baskets that we saw in the opening episode have been completely useless, haven't they?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not being a person who fishes, but it does seem that they gave him, and again, they gave him a lot more supplies than they normally do. These days, if you were to get something like a fish trap, you would get that as a reward, right? You would never get, right? They really gave them a fair, and then they won. And the fact that you can win the spear, right? So that they had, the point is they gave them the opportunity to catch food, right? Yeah. And they gave them plenty of opportunity. I feel like more opportunity than they would give them now. But again, even though it does seem that fishing would be the easiest thing in the world, how smart is a fish? In fact, clearly it's pretty hard. And Rich had the experience to actually be able to bring food home, and nobody else really could. With the Super Bowl 2000 and the fish traps and everything else that they had.
So later seasons, do we find people are much better at fishing, or?
No, I'm saying he might have been the best, but this idea about I'm going to be the provider.
Yes.
Right, I'm going to feed people, and then therefore they're not going to want to vote me off. It's a powerful thing. I'm saying, I think for somebody like Rich, I think he would say, oh, I can starve for 39 days. I don't care. I want the $1 million. But even if you say that, it's hard when you're in the middle of a starvation. And if you're not playing on the level of Rich, then of course you're going to want to keep the person around who's giving you food.
Yeah.
So anyway, but that's a big thing. And then we get to that quote that you teased earlier about with Greg talks about, breaking Colleen's neck. You get this little kitten, and you like it and you play with it and you sleep with it, and then you cut, you break their neck when you need to.
Yeah.
Now this gets better, actually. What? Sorry? I'm sorry, say it again.
Colleen knows this is his attitude.
No, not at all. That actually,
doesn't she say, tell me what you think of kittens or something? Doesn't she say that at one point?
Right, but that's he's playing with her, and I'm saying, but this actually gets the dichotomy between the two of them is even more striking than because again, apparently in the game, and again, this is based on what Mark Burnett says, or Mark Burnett's ghostwriter says, so who knows? But the story that they're telling is that Greg actually went to them and said, if the time comes that Colleen needs to go home, I want to be the person who votes her off. And the way he put it was, he said, if someone from your family, is about to be horribly murdered, and you have the opportunity, I mean, they're going to die, but at least you can kind of put them out of their misery in a non-painful way. He wants to be the one who does it.
No.
Yeah, that is what supposedly he said.
Take it.
Yeah. But then at the same time, this is the same guy who was saying, Gretchen hated this part of the game, right? Where the part where you have to vote people off. And he refused. He was the one person, I feel like, on Pagong who should have been smart enough and devious enough to really go all in on making a counter alliance. But he didn't want to do that because he didn't think that was fun. And he even said something to the effect of, if this is how we're going to play the game, I don't remember if this was in this episode or last episode, this is just not very much fun, right? I want to play a fun game. But then at the same time, he's like, if somebody has to strangle Colleen, I would like that person to be me.
Mm.
He's a fascinating guy and character. And this is why I wanted so badly to see if there was any chance that we could hear from him.
Oh, I think we should try and talk to him if we possibly can.
I tried. Like I said, you can try too. But he's been around the fan community much. And again, so this poor man went on this TV show 20 years ago, right? That, like you said, was a summer show that nobody thought was ever going to amount to anything. And obviously this was long before social media. Right. I mean, back in the day, there were ways to look people up and fans would show up at people's homes and all that. But it was obviously much, much, much harder. Right. Whereas now with social media, like I said, I found Greg. You could do the same thing. I went on LinkedIn and I typed in his name and he popped up. And the education, first of all, it's not an extremely common name, but also he graduated from Brown University in the right time frame. And he lives in Colorado. So, I mean, it's the same guy.
Yes.
And I shot off a message and he has not responded, and I'm not surprised, but I tried.
Yeah, it'd be good. I just find out of all the cast, I find him and I find Dirk. Is it Dirk? Dirk, yes.
Yeah.
I find both of those fascinating characters. And who's the other person I found particularly interesting? I didn't find Gretchen that interesting, I'm afraid. Mm-hmm. Susan, I think I'm going to find interesting, but I've still got to get to grips with her. Jenna, mm-hmm. I like Jenna.
Like I said, Jenna actually is a good friend of Johnny's, so no promises, but this might be somebody we might be able to get. With Greg, like I said, because he's just not active in the fan community, I had no reason to think that he was going to. But I also, like I said, I sympathize with him. He had no idea the 20 years on, when he's 40-some years old and running a company, that these crazy people who are still hung up on this TV show that he did 20 years ago are trying to cyberstalk him. Right? I understand him not wanting to be involved.
This is the point. It's maybe a crazy TV show, but it's defined the way that television has moved.
Oh, of course. Like I said, he's done something.
And we've not only got reality TV shows, but basically all the sort of breakfast TV presentation follows the same format. That you've just got professionals sitting in there chattering away to a camera. That sort of immediacy of reality.
Mm-hmm. He's huge. He's part of something that's absolutely huge. But my point is that he had no reason to think it was going to be that huge. He might not have even known for sure if it was going to make air. And certainly, like I said, the fact that 20 years later, these crazy people can try to find him in Colorado, is not what he signed up for.
When was the Truman Show made?
That's a good question. I want to say around the same time, but my knowledge of movies is not what it should be.
I must look it up.
Yeah, I think it's probably around the same time frame.
Yeah,
People can tell me in the chat if I'm completely wrong. When was the Truman Show made? I can't multitask well enough to talk to you and Google at the same time. No, but this is what people do. You say chat. Get back to us. Sitting there with phones, run it through Google and let us know.
Yes, absolutely.
So we have Greg, and then the other thing that I thought, you're talking about Greg's character, the way that he was trying to play Richard, I thought was just so wonderful.
Oh well, right? That's worth an entire podcast on its own, and
absolutely.
And I feel we're not going to get very much time to deal with that one, but
right, but let's talk about it a bit, because, and even, I don't know if you caught that, but when they were showing that, the bull session at evening when they're sitting around the fire, and Rich said, had asked, has anybody been with a man? And I forgot exactly how it went, but Greg certainly did something that made Rich think that maybe Greg has been with a man before. And I'm not saying he was. I think Greg.
He said, it was, when I was younger, it was just fooling around or something like that.
Right. And I'm not sure if it was true, but the point is that he's the first person who's really trying to play on Rich's level. And I love Rich's comment on this. He said, I would like to get Greg Beller, but I would also like to have $1 million.
But then he says it would be that Greg would be too much effort, really.
Right.
They have to look after him.
Right, but I think we've talked about this whole idea of the showmance and how it can be good for your game. Normally it's bad for your game. And I feel like this is what this was, right? Tim's like, I want the $1 million. Greg is pretty, but I came here to win $1 million. He's been very open to this from the beginning, that this is what he wants. And so, and even like when he votes Greg off, and we'll get there, but he says something to the effect of, that's right, he sings. We'll get there. But so what do you think of all this flirting? I mean, what do you think? What do you think of the ethics of, let's say, clearly Greg is, I don't think, what I identify as a gay man, right? Maybe he's bisexual. Maybe he did a little bit of experimenting. Maybe he's just lying to Rich.
Maybe.
But what do you think?
He certainly knows how to. He certainly knows how to flirt,
right.
and that is entertaining in itself. I'm not sure. I'm not sure it makes for the most edifying television, but it's a charming way to pass the time.
Right.
Right.
So, and then we get to me, like I said, I'm trying to move quickly without jumping around too much. Do you have any comments on the rest of the family, the people that you got to meet? We see Rich's son, you have Kelly's boyfriend. We'll get to we'll get to the incest video in a minute.
Well, out of all of them, the person who was most cogent was actually Richard's son. I mean, he's beautifully intelligent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, clearly.
You can see what Richard has put in there. You can see that Richard is an incredibly good father. And
I think Chris was only like 10 or 11. He's not. Yeah.
And he just buzzes with intelligence and brightness and warmth. All the things which I think actually Rich has also got. I mean, we were talking, I think, off podcast about whether or not I liked Rich, and I think the answer is yes. I think I think Rich is one of the people that I would get on terribly well with. I don't approve of everything that he does in terms of strategy,
right?
But then I have a hang up about strategy. But I have.
That's what I was going to say. You're coming around on that.
No, I just understand what it is. I know that I'm not very good at it. I know that believe me, I'm 4 steps ahead of everybody's strategy. The problem is in a game, I love playing chess, but I'm a dreadful chess player because I know what the other person is going to do. And I'm so excited. And I'm so impressed by my own perspicacity that I start to giggle. And I cannot stop my giggling. I don't have a tell. I just have a monumental inability to hide the pure pleasure of having worked out what someone's going to do.
We do have an answer, by the way, with the Truman Show, and Nicholas Torres told us that it was 1998. So I was right. It's right about the same.
Quite early. It's quite early.
Yeah.
So the media world was in advance of Survivor, really.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think the idea, like I said, well, because it had happened before. Like Jonny was talking about, The Real World was a show that was a few years earlier. But it didn't have a competitive aspect. They just took a bunch of people from different walks of life and put them in a house for the summer. So that was definitely a thing. The thing that really made Survivor such a watershed was the $1 million. And they did try it, and they tried it also with Big Brother. Well, Big Brother is a separate issue. I'm not going to go into that. But to work this out, and the competitive side of it versus the character-driven side of it. Like that's something they're still trying to work out.
So I think the character-driven side of it is fascinating, and character will always emerge under a certain pressure, and maybe that $1 million is enough pressure. I don't think it would be enough for me, and I was entertained that Jonny probably seems to take the same view that the real thing is that games play.
I think it's both, because I'll tell you with Jonny. I mean, Jonny and I have discussed. Obviously, he wants to play again, and I think the biggest reason. I mean, he'd love to play the game again, but college is expensive. So I think you have a lot more control over being a good character than you do over whether or not you'll win the game. Even if there's a lot of luck involved, you can absolutely tank your game. But even if you do everything right, your chances of winning are, less than 50%. There's no way around that. So you go out there. There are other ways. I'm saying if I were to play the circle, on the one hand, yes, I feel like I know what the producers want, right? I would help them make a TV show. But at the same time, I want the money. And I guess I'm assuming I'm probably not going to win, and that's fine. And I'm doing it, largely for the experience. But you better believe that if they give me a chance, I'm going to try to win the money.
Yes, I certainly didn't do it for the experience. I didn't really know what the experience would be. I wanted to stay in there as long as I could. I had absolutely no. The thought of winning never crossed my mind. And even when I was asked, "What would you do? What would you do to get the money?" It was an insane question, and I couldn't answer it. I wouldn't do anything to get the money. I don't expect to get the money. I would love to be at the table for the finals and see Ella or Woody win. That was it. And I would do the same thing with Survivor, I think. Mm-hmm. I don't see myself in this sort of game as being a winner of that sort of thing. It's not something I consider worth winning. Great if it falls into your lap, but I think you earn money.
Right.
I think I'm probably worth $1 million, but so you should be giving me $1 million. I shouldn't have to sort of survive and to bash everybody else down in order to access that money that I've earned by being hugely entertaining. There's a bit of me which just feels this is morally absurd. You need a goal for a game, and that seems perfectly reasonable. But it's not something. The game itself is worth playing. I'm not desperate for $1 million that I would bash everybody else in order to get it. And actually, I also think the majority of people who play, and the majority of people that I know, would actually, when pressed, hold the same view. When put in a camera saying, "What would you do to earn $1 million to get the $1 million?" Yes, of course, people generally acquiesce and they say, "Oh, I do this, I do that, I do this sort of strategy," but they don't mean it. I really don't think they mean it. People are not that interested.
Interesting, and I think most people are a lot more mercenary than you think. But I think it's the opposite. I think people get on these shows, they know nothing about it. They don't even bother to watch the seasons before they go in, but they absolutely want the money.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's so many easier ways to get money, I think.
$1 million? I mean, $1 million has changed in 20 years in terms of what it's worth, et cetera, but it's still a nice chunk of change.
Yeah, I suppose so.
And it reminds me of that old joke about, gentleman goes up to a lady and says, the man says, would you sleep with me for $1 million? Right.
I was thinking of prostitution.
Yes.
Go on.
Yeah, and I'm not great at telling jokes, but and I guess under the surface, so yes, whatever, and says, well, would you do it for $10? Says, what do you think I am? It's like, well, we've already established that, right? The only question is the price. You've never heard that? You've never heard that?
No, that's not a joke. That's a philosophical that's a philosophical conundrum, and this is the point. It wouldn't matter how much money was involved to me. I mean, would I say I wouldn't do it? No, I just wouldn't be. I wouldn't be fazed by the amount. That's not. That wouldn't motivate me. The motivation would be the moral question in the first place. And if I was so desperate for $10, maybe a little prostitution would be an acceptable route. Would it be acceptable for $1 million? That makes no sense. The only time when somebody would be faced with that sort of thing was if they were starving. I'm not starving, and so I'm not faced with that with having to make that decision. And I don't think it changes whether it's $10 or $1 million. I think you hit the nail on the head actually with that conundrum. However, I think there are certain forms of TV which amount to a Faustian pact, which is very close to prostitution, and I worry about that, and partly because I think people don't realize what they're getting into.
Well, that's the bigger issue, I think, is that it's not what money can do to people. I think people know that going in, right, and they feel like, oh, they'll be fine. What they don't know, like you said, is the kind of manipulation that goes not only of the audience, right, but of the contestants. Oh,
absolutely. And one of the problems is that although people tend to know of the name of Marlowe, they think that he probably might have been the person who wrote Shakespeare's plays. Almost nobody has read Dr. Faustus because it's a dreadful play, and even fewer people have actually seen the opera Faust, though you know that we've got the quotation in Tintin, which is great. It's got some great moments in it, but it's one of these huge operas which is almost unproducible. There was a dreadful production in the Royal Opera House a few years ago with Mephistopheles in drag, but the whole Faustian pact thing is central to our culture. What would you do in order to have everything? And the answer is nobody can offer me that, because if they can offer me everything, they've also got complete control. Right. And do I want to sacrifice myself to somebody who has complete control of what I do? And in the cold light of day, I think anybody who is sane would say no. But the Faustian pact is never presented in that way. It's always presented in a way that you actually think somebody isn't going to have that much control. Television is a reality TV. I think production is extraordinary, and the Jenna story is a really good example of it. And that story, the truth of that video will never come out because it's too dangerous.
It's funny you say that, but given that it has been 20 years and, I'm not even sure to what extent I guess the contract probably still does cover her. I'm guessing that it says that you can't talk about, X, Y, and Z, that we don't give you permission to I'm not sure if it's for the rest of your life, but certainly, again, I'm not sure we're going to be able to get Jenna, but I think that. But Jenna no, but I'm sure she's heard it. I don't think she's heard it. Whatever. Yes, anyway,
whether or not that tape had actually arrived, I'm sure it had arrived.
No, I understand. Sure we've got to move on to the other thing that everybody the quote unquote incest video, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. But what did you think?
Well, I thought it was entertaining.
And then he does it again when he's making the video sending back to her.
Yeah. I think I think you've got a much better word for it in the US than we have in the UK. You've got the word kooky.
What did you say it again? Right.
Isn't the word kooky?
Kooky. Yeah, possibly. Yeah. And I guess maybe I feel like this didn't shock me because I know.
Because they're just both off their rockers.
Right.
It's charmingly innocent.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. But this is what I was going to say is the people that, again, I went to, not the same university that Greg went to, but a similar kind of place.
Yeah.
And he's younger than me, but, not by so much. And so, yeah, this is the kind of stunt that, I'm going to, play with the whole idea of incest on, national TV. This is absolutely the kind of thing that I can see many, many people I know doing. Yes. I don't know they would do it that well. Yes. But, and then we got Rudy, who I do think was, kind of mildly appalled that, and I wish I'd written down exactly what he said.
No, I don't know what he said at that point, actually.
He was right, but he was not on board.
Because I didn't take Greg or his sister's thing seriously, so I wasn't really making notes at that point.
Neither did I, but I think some people did take it. Or people also said the other thing is not even that people thought that there was anything going on between Greg and Julie, but just that this is the kind of thing that shouldn't even be joked about. I think was more action.
I think in some ways it shouldn't, but the problem is you can't put boundaries on humor. If it's working, it's working, and it clearly did work because neither you nor I took it very seriously.
He also, and so then in the video that he makes, to send back. I mean, this quote I do have that Rudy was, he said, we got to put up with this for I wish I could do a Rudy impression. I could, we got to put up with this for 2 weeks, and then we might kill him. So I don't think he was, so appalled, or if he did, we didn't see it. But, there was certainly a question. Clearly, I don't have a problem with this. I don't think you have a problem with this.
But it was disturbing that, there were so many pointers in this episode that told us that Greg was going.
Mm-hmm. Well, like I said, so you're learning to read the edit. Good for you, Tim.
Oh, yes.
Right.
And I thought, it's a choice between Greg and Jenna. Well, initially it was a choice between Greg and Gervais.
Right.
And then Gervais gets immunity.
Right. And Greg was also supposed to go home last week, right? Yeah. Greg would have gone home if he hadn't won. So that's why Gretchen went home. So, yeah, it was not hard. Again, it's not hard to figure out what Rich / the Tagi Fours, list is in terms of boot order. Right. Gretchen and Greg are always going to be the two biggest.
Next week will be Gervais.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I don't see that it could be anybody else. It could possibly be Jenna.
Mm-hmm. But it is interesting. So I just want to flag something that Jervis said. He says, everything else has a role. Rich fishes, Rudy cooks, Sean hauls wood, and he's like, I'm the entertainer.
Yes.
And Sue says, he's not so charming. He's a slacker. But then when we see his actual strategy, and he does have a strategy at this point where he says, I'm just going to sleep all the time so that I can wake up and win every immunity challenge. Right. So I understand that didn't go over so well, with Sue and some of the other people. But it wasn't just as simple of, he's too lazy. He doesn't want to do anything. And this also falls into, these racial stereotypes, which, again, unfortunately, this is far from the first or the last time that this kind of thing will happen. That we had also with Ramona, this idea that, you're black, you must be lazy. But this is the kind of trope that it's too easy to fall into. Ramona was sick. And Greg, I'm sure Jervis also. Let's face it, Jervis is probably the kind of guy who does get along a lot on his charm in real life, also, etc. But but this is also something that does come up on Survivor repeatedly. This whole idea about improving life at camp versus saving your strength for the challenges. That's to this day a real thing. And so I don't know why Jervis gets such a hard time for being the first person to figure that out.
On the Jervis thing, again, in terms of the edit, we've had no evidence of him being entertaining.
I guess, and you don't like him. I like him. And America liked him. And America liked him.
Jervis would be one of the people I would want to make friends with. But I haven't seen any evidence of him being entertaining in the show at all. He's very affable.
Yeah, and
But-
maybe and also Jervis has played again. That's the other thing, is that, we've seen him much more recently.
Right.
But he looks exactly the same. It's kind of freaky that 15 years later he hasn't aged a day.
Yes.
But so maybe I'm also reacting, like I said, I have that stored in my memory banks, right?
Yeah.
After what the second time. But I find him quite charming.
He is, but I don't see any. I don't see any evidence of him entertaining the rest of the camp at all.
I don't know, Lindsay. I would say even in this episode, right? So this episode or the last episode, all these things are blurring together, where the women are doing all the work. And it was last episode, and Jervis is playing cards with all the guys, and he bonds, but at that point he had several new friends. It didn't take him long.
I suppose he plays cards with people, yeah.
And he brought that pack of cards on Survivor as his luxury item for a reason.
Yeah.
So anyway, I like Jervis. Then the other thing that we just want to stick a pin in this, because spoiler alert, this might become relevant later. Kelly starts having issues with the Alliance.
Oh.
She says, "I didn't come here to friends, but I like these people."
I'm afraid Kelly is somebody I can give or take. I just don't care much about her, and I always have to go back to my list of who is in the show to work out who he is. Somehow she just hasn't made an impression.
And I hate to tell you, she has also played again, and also kind of the same thing. Obviously, many people like her. That's why they brought her back. But I agree with you that she's fine. She's obviously very strong, and for somebody so young, she's very mature and all that, but she's not somebody, but everybody, that's the whole idea. People are drawn to different people. That's why they put 16 or 20 people on a show. You don't have to love everybody. But the point is that it's just important that she's signed on with the Alliance, but now she's starting to think about, like I said, when she's talking about the possibility of a women's alliance with Jenna or whatever. So Sue is the one who says, "I got my alliance, I'm good." We don't hear that from Kelly. And then later we hear from Kelly, I'm not so sure that, I like these people. Yeah. I'm not sure if I know that this is what I should do to win the game, but I'm not sure I want to do it. So again, just put a pin in that.
Right. So
you look mystified.
Problem.
Sorry?
She could cause a voting problem at this stage in the game.
Right. Well, and we talk about voting problems. So this is the other thing we talk Jervis. That Jervis has more game than people tend to think. He's the one who says, "Look, we need to stick together for this vote." Right now, there are 9 people on the island, and there are 4 people in the Tagi Alliance. Yeah. So if you can count, you understand that this is possibly the last time that if those 5 come together, right, they could actually have voted off one of the Tagi 4. Right, Jervis floats that idea, but then we'll get there in a second. What actually happens is
Greg also vote again. We'll
get there. We'll get there. But I'm saying, but he really tried. He saw this problem, and he said, "This is our last chance. We could even this out right now and have a chance." He didn't say this in so many words, but this is what I'm assuming his thought process was, because it's pretty obvious. But like I said, that is not what ends up happening. So anything else you want to talk about before we get to tribal council?
No. Do they think that if if I were a member of Pagon, would are you suggesting that I think that I could win on my own?
You mean you or Jervis? I don't quite understand your question.
If I were Jervis on my own.
Right, I think...
Because Jervis is part of Pagon, isn't he? Yeah.
Yes,
and so is it that he actually thinks that he now needs to take out the other Pagons, and then...
that's the issue, right? Is that, so let's move into tribal council. I just have to flag this, is that, so Probst asks what I call the question to Rich. He says, and not just the whole thing about is there an alliance and they're all lying about it, because that's understandable. I understand why they're lying. They're not lying so well. And I do think that at this point, first of all, obviously, Probst knows, right? Because there are dailies. And I think the Pagongs also know, or certainly should have known after the Gretchen vote, right, that there is an alliance. So I don't find that whole so interesting where, is there alliance? And they're lying about the fact that there's
Jenna talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah, but I said, but Probst first asked Richard this. This is the very important question, I think, especially for Rich. And I think that's why Rich was asked. But it applies to all of the people who are trying to play hard, right? Not the entire cast, but it applies equally to Sue, Kelly, etc. She says, "How do you balance the ruthlessness you need to get to the final two with the likability you will need to get the final votes?" That is the question. And of course, you're like, of course. But this was probably the first time that this had ever been enunciated in a reality TV show.
Rich says, well, I just keep fishing.
Right. Rich tries to fob it off. And of course, he's lying through his teeth.
Well, he's using a reality. He's using a fact.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is a very good lie. In one sense.
Absolutely.
It's a very good evasion. It's not a lie.
Right.
It's an evasion.
Right. But this is my point: is that this is the question that every reality TV contestant faces, assuming that they care about winning the money, which you don't, right? But if you are there and you want to win, this is the way. Like I said, all of these games now are set up this way. And by the way, I'm not sure if you know, besides Big Brother, there are so many other versions of this basic conceit, this caveat of, you set up a bunch of people in some place, some experience. So in Survivor, it's on an island. And in Big Brother, it's in a big house. But you're going to have to vote people off, right? But then at the end, get people to vote for you. This is now, like I said, such a reality TV trope. It's so obvious that people don't even talk about it. But this is how it starts. Right? How can you be likable and ruthless? And people are still trying to work this out, 20 years later. No, I think Rich's evasion on it is great. But I'm just saying that question, which you're just kind of whatever, is, like I said, that's the question that we're still trying to ask.
What I find so extraordinary is, I mean, if I were on the show, I would have already decided that I am Rich's wingman.
Mm-hmm.
But there isn't anybody in that position. Maybe
you don't think Rudy is his wingman?
No, I don't. I think Rudy is out for himself as well.
I don't. And again, maybe I'm reading too much into it by knowing what happens in the rest of the show. But I feel like he's. Well, I don't know that Rudy is capable of being disloyal. Military background and all that. That, like, once you, because besides the Tagi final four, I think at this point we already have a final two between Rich and Rudy. Now, maybe I'm probably inserting this because I'm sure they probably didn't see it on the show, but certainly this has already happened on the island. I'm sure that at this point, Rich has a final two with everybody in the Tagi Alliance.
Yes.
But I think Rudy is probably the one. Or again, he said that this is the one that I think he would have stuck to. But you also then quoted what you also flagged what Jenna said, which I thought was great. We were talking about Gretchen, and she said, I thought Gretchen was going to make the final two, so if I get voted off now, I'll carry it as a badge of honor. Is that the quote that you were referring to?
Yes. So you think Rudy? So Rudy gets rid of Gretchen because she's a potential leader, but Rudy doesn't have winner written on him. Rudy is not a winner, except maybe to win by default.
Now, are you saying this just based on reading the edit? What makes you say that? I'm not saying you're right or you're wrong. I just want to know what you're thinking. Reading
the character, if he's a soldier, he's a sort of glorified squaddy. He's a sergeant major. He's not a general.
Right. No, I'm saying I think you've read him correctly.
Yeah, the general in this show is Richard.
Mm-hmm.
And what Richard's great talent is to get other people to think that it's their decision. And I'm sure Richard manipulated Rudy into suggesting getting rid of Gretchen.
Okay, so I'm actually I want to just put this on the record now while we're discussing this. How can I put this? Because obviously I don't want to give anything away. Let's say we get to the end, or even we get to the Tagi 4 are all together at the end. I'm not saying that this happens, right? And Rich has to choose, right? How is he going to navigate this? Who is he going to vote off? Who is he going to take to the end? Because I think Rudy's right. Rudy's.
If I were rich, I would feel that Rudy was the least threat.
Meaning you should take him to the end.
Yes, because and that Rudy would support him. But Rudy is not a natural. Rudy is not the sort of wingman that I would be.
Okay, so what would the difference be? What would the difference be?
Well, the difference is I would have been quite open about it, and I would have said, "Look, I want you to win."
That's generally not considered to be great TV, because then fans start yelling at the television, you know, what do you mean? And by the way, we've seen this on Survivor and on other shows. Of course, that happens where people end up basically playing for somebody else. But I'm saying if you were to do that on the show, people would be yelling at their televisions and being very upset with you.
Really? I did it. I did it. I just think, you know, in the circle, I thought, look, I'm here with a group of people who must be younger than me. Why would anybody vote for some old fart when they can vote for somebody young and glamorous? That was my understanding. I didn't think I stood a chance, but I did think that I could be a kingmaker. But
you're not wrong. So the point is that your game and there's a whole question about whether this is a reasonable way to play the game. You're basically saying, I want to play in the GOAT position. Well, but that means you don't want to win. I'm saying, let's assume if you did want to win. You're saying, because there is a way to play this game and it has been done, and there's a whole question as to whether this is, you know, good strategy or not. Where you just say, like you said, I'm going to be the wingman. I think I'm going to find the person who I think is most likely or / most deserving, whatever, of winning, and I'm going to facilitate that. But for me, like I said, the only difference would be for me is that at some point, I would want to cut that person's throat.
Really?
Yeah, I would fully expect Richard to cut Rudy at some point. If Richard thinks that Rudy might get votes, right? Because this is normal. I say this is the setup. I shouldn't say Rich and Rudy because this is not what happens. Okay, Rich and Rudy are not the final two. I'll tell you that right now. I'm not giving it away to you. Okay, but I've just kind of set up the idea because I can't finding my words again. Because Rich is the kind of person I'm bringing Rich because he's the person who is obviously his mind is going 200 miles an hour.
Yes.
Right. Not sure if that's so true of anybody else. So I'm saying, but I would expect Rich to do it. I mean, he could bring Rudy to the end if he's absolutely convinced that Rudy wouldn't get the votes. But if you have because again, I could see that people love Rudy, right? I mean, Rudy is hilarious. People seem to be fond of Rudy, the people on the island. And so if I were afraid that I think, Rudy seems to be more popular than I am, I would cut him. I mean, this is the way that reality TV is played. Even with a alliance like the Tagi Four, right? 20 years ago, maybe the goal would have been, and they would really feel that, okay, we might get to the end and we'll deal with it when we get to 4. What happens on shows now, and sometimes people can do that, but what tends to happen much more now is that before you get to the 4, you start turning on yourself. You look at the other 3 and you say, which one of you could beat me? Okay, I'm going to cut you.
You've still got, you're down to the 4. You've still got a week to live with these people once you've started slashing at them.
Well, once you slash somebody, right, they go to Ponderosa, right? They're not your problem anymore.
They're still going to turn up in the jury.
And that is a different problem, right? Jury management is a huge part of the game, right? That, like I said, this whole thing, you have to be ruthless enough to get to the end, but still convince people to vote for you. This is the conundrum of Survivor and all the shows that copy it.
Yes.
So in terms of just who, I'm just trying to think if there's anything else on these. Was there anything else on tribal? We'll get to the votes in a minute. But I have a bunch of other quotes. I'm not sure if I need to share them. Chat if there's anything else you want me to talk about.
The other thing that comes up. Everybody's here for the money. Everybody wants the money. Is that tray again?
Right.
That trope again, which just keeps coming up again and again and again. We've almost done it to death because
right.
The wolf or the hyena. What was that?
Wait, say it again.
In the dark, there seemed to be a wolf or a hyena or a.
I don't even pay attention to those nature shocks anymore. I mean, they're beautiful, but yeah, whenever anything interesting that they find, and this is one of those things, like you said, they started very, very early into this day. Those nature shots are still a part of the show, and they could be. But I don't. You're much more into those than that. I didn't really pay so much attention. So we get to the votes. We get to see the voting confessionals. So Jervis votes Jenna. So much for the whole idea of having Pagong stick together, right? Yeah. Because what should have happened would have been that Jerv should have taken the rest of Pagong and Sean, but he seemed to have missed, and he was able. So we have a vote of 6-3. So most of Pagong did get together. Jervis and Greg and Colleen all got together, and they tried to vote out Jenna. I need the head banging emoji. People, this is not how this works. Yeah. Right? If you realize that you are in danger from the Tagi 4, you want to vote off one of the Tagi 4, right?
It doesn't make sense. Yes, it doesn't make sense.
No sense whatsoever.
Why were they turning on Jenna? What had she done to make them turn on her?
Well, again, they don't have to be. She doesn't have to have done anything. Again, we've gotten to the point now, but they're right. Either she did something that we didn't see. The only thing we saw with Jervis was, like you said, she's a single mother, and maybe now she's going to get sympathy for this, right? So maybe that would be his argument. But why would Colleen and Greg be showing that? Right? These people look. Pagong is not very good at Survivor. Pagong is not. They're fun.
Maybe Jenna has done something that we haven't seen.
Yeah, no, I think it's much more likely that they got this idea that we need to stick together, but they shot themselves literally in their own foot or in their own head, right? They took the gun, and rather than shooting at a Tagi, they turned around and shot it at somebody in Pagong.
And you think that because Jenna hasn't got the tape, they thought
that's the only thing they've shown us. But again, when we get this close to the end of the show. Yeah. Right. There can be for either any reason or no reason. And what she says is not wrong. She says, I'll wear this as a badge of honor. This is definitely true. I'm saying these days, as the game goes on, you start voting people off because they're threats or you don't think they're going to necessarily take you to the end. Yeah. Okay, let me back off. When I talk about taking somebody to the end, because I'm realizing that there are really basic things about Survivor you might not know. The way this goes is, so we keep voting people off, right, until we get to 3 people. Okay. Yeah. And then there's a final immunity challenge. And if think about it, when you get to 3 people, right? I'm just going to make up names so that but let's say, I'm not going to, let's just use Greg, Gretchen, and Joel, right? So people that we know we're not going to win. How do I want to put this? Because I really don't want to spoil you. Maybe I should drop this. But my point is that you want to vote against. It's about who you vote out. So they're trying to do strategy in this very half-assed way, and they're pointing the gun in there. If that's what they were doing, because again, we don't really know. This is one of the things that they do get somewhat better at the show. That they give us a reason, right? They let us see.
Karen, there are acres of time when these people are forming friendships and close friendships with their other contestants. Which production isn't really interested in. Production wants to see strategy. No,
but they want to say that the friendships are also a big part of the, and also the friendships influence the strategy.
Yes.
Okay, you tend to bond with the people and all the people that you get along with.
Yeah.
Right? And also just in the end when you vote somebody off. Oh wait, now it's just now my head is just slapped back into what I was trying to say before. We are at, I'm sorry, I'm flying around all over the place here. It is, so we're at the final 3. This is why I would love to have a show that I could actually not do live and I could edit, but that's not how this works. So you get to see behind the curtain when somebody just suddenly loses their thought in the middle of a sentence and can't figure out what they were trying to say. So we get Jervis, Greg, and Joel, whatever I said, right?
Yeah.
And let's say Joel wins the final challenge. Now, so think about it. You go to final tribal, or that's not final, but the last regular tribal council. If you think about it, Greg can only vote for Joel. Joel can only vote for Greg. So basically, the person who wins that last immunity challenge decides who is going to sit with them in the final 2.
Absolutely.
So when I talk about somebody bringing somebody to the end, that's what I'm saying. When I say, is Rich going to bring Rudy to the end? What I mean is that given the choice, and even just leading up to that, as we get into the end game, who does he want to sit with to the extent that he has control?
Yes, I see.
So I'm just saying, so when I throw that term around, that's what I mean.
That immunity challenge actually has a choice.
Right. They have the choice as to sit with. And like I said, and that is a very complicated choice, which we'll obviously talk a lot about when we get there. But it's this amalgam of, have you made bigger moves than the other person? Are you more likable than the other person?
And this is where Jonny had the thing with the lady sitting.
Right. So this was the final tribe, right? The final immunity challenge.
I see.
Right. And it is a challenge that Lil, like I said, never ever should have won, but did. And that's the thing. And so she had a choice. And she could have taken Jonny to the end. And that's probably what most people might do now, because she would certainly think that he was not liked among the cast, right?
So therefore, people would choose her rather than him.
Right. Now, that didn't happen because Lil is a scoutmaster. What she wore on the tribe was her Boy Scout uniform. Okay. And so she is you want to talk about being concerned with ethics, and, everything was about, as a scoutmaster, what would I do? And so, of course, she could take Jonny. Jonny is this horrible, nasty, vulgar person, right? She has to bring the other person, right, to the end. And also because there's money involved, the way that the survivor payouts work. You get $1 million for winning, $100,000 for second, and then it drops off from there. So Lil decided that either for ethical reasons, she did not want to give Jonny the money, so she didn't take him. Because I think if Lil had taken Jonny to the end, I think there's a good chance that Jonny would have won. Because on the one hand, they didn't like him. On the other hand, Lil was also pretty unlikable, and he was certainly playing a strategic game in a way that she wasn't. But yeah, that's what we're talking about, the whole thing about bringing people. And now, to make it more complicated, what they're doing now is they've started doing a final 3. So this decision has to be made at 4. It gets complicated.
Right.
But this is the basic setup of this. And then finally, Greg goes home. So we had three votes for Jenna.
I do have something there.
Yes.
Was he really crying? I couldn't work out.
No. Rudy says at some point, I fell for it for a minute. No. This whole thing, it's clear that Greg's entire performance on Survivor, it's a piece of performance art, right? All these things he's done. I talked about, like I said, when the people from the army come and he's on the coconut phone, wearing his shorts with his junk hanging out.
Yes.
Right. That didn't make air, but he probably wanted it to. It certainly made the book. And the incest video, and this, right, of course. And he had this planned, right? What is he going to do when his time finally comes? No, this is absolutely, and I feel like that. I felt that was obvious. You thought he might actually be crying?
Well, I thought initially it was a joke, and then I thought, I've written down a joke or real.
No. It's definitely a joke. I do wish I understood his vote, though, because again, I'm not really expecting much more than that from Colleen or Jervis or whatever. But I'm trying to figure out why Greg voted for Jenna, because What did he say? He said I guess he's voted for her several times, and he says the first time was paranoia, okay. The second time was irritation, okay, and the third is because my ear infection is clearing up.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
I assume he basically just didn't want to tell us why.
Really?
And that's my best guess. I wish I could talk to him.
I expect it's some sort of code. I would love to talk to him. I find
you and thousands. If you would understand, if we could get Greg on the show, we would have thousands of people watching. because he is so hard to get. Look, when somebody is, like I said, this, right? Just in general, people want what they can't have. And so the harder it is to get somebody on your show or, whatever, the more prized you become. Jenna is willing to jump on any podcast, right? Which is great. I love Jenna. But it's not such a big get if Jenna were to come on the show. It would be great. I hope we can do it. It'd be fun. But it's and people would tune in to hear her. But because she's been on Jonny's podcast before, she's been around in the fan community the whole time she plays again, right? Whereas with Greg, I'm saying Greg just kind of fell off the face of the earth. I have heard that he has been offered several times to come back, and he's even thought about it. It's not like some people just won't pick up the phone when CBS calls. He picks up the phone, but I think he just said, because he did do it at an interview 4 or 5 years ago, I'll try to find a link and I'll send it to you, but it sounds like he was not let's drop it. So we have a quote here from Nicholas in the chat. He says, that makes Jenna talk too much. I thought Nicholas, I think that's the Nicholas. I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name. So, sorry, because there's an accent on the A. I think the second one is that when he said the second time is irritation, right? That's the thing. She was just getting on his nerves. But yeah, just another of these weird comments by Greg. And then Rich, I did flag this, where when he votes Greg off and he sings "Goodnight, Sweetheart."
Oh yes.
Never happened again because they probably had to pay royalties. But we did learn that besides Greg, that Rich also has a decent singing voice. So
yes,
too bad we didn't get to hear more of that.
So what has Rich done since? Has he done theatre or acting?
Rich, there's a lot with Rich. And like I said, I don't want to give, because the things that happen for the rest of the season impact but he's played again. I mean, many of these people played again. Rudy played
hasn't had a life.
What's he doing since? I don't think he's an actor. I'm not even sure what he's doing. Does he do mostly business? I mean, this is the kind of thing I should know. What does he actually do day by day?
I'd be very interested because, he's got a wonderful theatrical personality.
Oh, yeah, no, I have given Jonny a list of people I would like him to get for me. Yeah. And like I said, Rich and Jenna are two that maybe we can get. Whereas with Greg, like I said, and Ramona, I had to try, but like I said, I need to work Jonny's connections, and even with those two, no, Rich, I would certainly want to talk to, and Jenna would be fun as well.
Oh, Jenna would be lovely.
Yeah,
Jenna would be lovely. I could even get out my pencil and do some sketching.
that would be lovely. My question is, I don't know what I have to do to get you to draw me, Tim. That's my question. No, seriously. You draw everybody. Now, it might not be flattering. I don't know if I would like it. But
the problem with these talks is, first of all, I tend to wear the wrong glasses, so I can't really see anything.
Oh, okay.
And secondly, on the screen, everybody's so small. One needs, and normally I sit in front of my TV here, which is big. And
I don't know that you really want to, you want my face on your big TV. It's not so necessary. But maybe we can dangle some sketches. Oh, I'm just thinking about the old thing, which I'm sure, again, nobody under the age of 50 is going to understand. The whole thing about, why don't you come up and see my sketches? For those of us who are not older than dirt, that used to be one of these old lines.
Etchings. Also, I find sketching somebody as a way to get to know them.
Right. And you feel like you already know me, so you can't really do it anymore. That's my guess.
There we are. No, it's one way of getting to know somebody if you can't talk to them. We've talked.
Right, that's what I mean. So let's work.
What I find so fascinating about you is there's always something extra, because you have such a fast mind.
Oh,
and
thanks.
And it's also quite nice seeing you trying to take control of me. And I know I'm terribly.
I forgot to tell you before we went live that Jonny had to leave. No, and so I really had to kind of crack the whip and I knew what he wanted to talk about, and I knew how much time he had.
Yeah. I don't sound too badly behaved, but yeah. we probably have to close because we will. Let's talk about next week just briefly, and then I'll do my time next week.
Sorry.
We're at a time next week.
You, for some reason, you keep dropping off, and that's why I keep asking you to repeat.
I'm so sorry. We're at a different time next week, aren't we?
Oh no, yes. Thank you for reminding me. Okay, so let's take it back up. So just with the next time, right? We see cracks start to form in the alliance, and now they're doing letters from family, and so will Jenna get a letter? So this is not so, but this is interesting because on Modern Survivor we have one family thing. Right. Usually these days it's an in-person visit, the video, a letter, whatever. They've decided to do that more than once this time. So she will have another chance to have some communication with her family. So that's nice. Yes. So now that you're already chomping at the bit, you know exactly now what I do with the housekeeping. Now, Jonny has already told us what's coming up next week. He's telling you why you should join Patreon, where he's absolutely right. Like I said, I'm wearing the t-shirt, live the dream. You want to be Jonny Fairplay's friend. It can happen. God, if you had told me in 2003 that I was going to be friends with Jonny Fairplay, I would have said you're absolutely barking mad. Right. But things happen. So we've always said that. Now, but for our yes, so for next week we are going to be at a different time. We are going to be starting 1 episode later. Sorry, 1 hour later. For this reason, because our guest is Lisa Stanger, the winner of Survivor New Zealand season 2. And our regular time would be 6 a.m. in New Zealand. And so I said to her, I assume you want to do it later. And she said, 7 would be fine. Now, I'm the kind of person who rolls out of bed at 9 reluctantly. But so it's going to be very, very early in the morning for her and a bit later for you, but it's the evening for you. It should be fine. Yeah. And yes, Lisa is, okay, so I really wanted you to meet her, first of all, because she's hilarious and cute and I love her. Part of it is because she had absolutely no problem with lying and cutting heads. Oh, she's a school librarian. You've never met her. You have to see her. But she's tiny and very sweet, and she's very much the school librarian. And one of the things, and we'll get obviously into this more next time, but her thing when she was on New Zealand was that she did something. Normally, if you're a super fan on these shows, you would never tell anybody because they say, oh, you know the game. You might be dangerous. We need to get rid of you. Where she was very open with her cast, and she's like, I just want to experience everything. And she would do a tick. She's like, oh, I got to win. I got to win a tribal challenge. Tick. I got to hold the immunity idol. Tick. This was her thing. And her team, her tribe, really enjoyed allowing her to get those ticks, right? Because she's a super fan and she's living the dream, and then she won. So if Lisa has no problem doing what you have to do to win, right? And she's sweet and lovely, then, like I said, maybe you'll decide that strategy isn't so bad. But I think you're already coming.
Are you grooming me for the first episode of British Survivor?
I actually haven't seen British Survivor. I know that it
exists. As far as I know, it doesn't exist.
No, it was. I think they didn't they do? I want to say they did a season.
I don't know,
back in the day. No, it would be if they did. It was a long, long time ago.
I barely knew of the existence of Big Brother. So
right. Big Brother is big in the UK. I know, and although it's different, because in the Big Brother, right, it's audience vote, right? They don't vote each other off. Yeah, so it's different. It's basically, you can call it Big Brother, you can put them in a game, but I would argue it's a very different game. That was the original Big Brother in US. That was season 1 was like. And then I think based on the appeal of Survivor, what they did was they kind of took a piece of Survivor strategy and had them start voting people off. But then obviously that becomes a completely different game, right? In terms of whether the decision maker being England or the UK or America versus this, because the thing is, when you're having an audience vote, it's interesting, but you don't have this conundrum which Probst asks about, where how do you cut people and then still win the money? All of that goes away because you're not cutting people, and you don't have to make people. You want to make your country like you, but you don't have to make your competitors like you. And so they give it the same name. It's not the same show. I'm not saying it's a bad show. It's just a different show. All right.
Yeah.
I mean, so for the 3 people who are probably 4 people who are still watching live, we went very long today. I'm sorry, but I think we had some good stuff.
I am sorry, but it's my fault.
No, it's fine. Please. And look, Tim, when they get bored, they tune out. That's all. We can keep going.
Yeah,
but so next week at 3 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. UK time, we will be back with Lisa Stanger watching episode 9.
Lovely.
Right. Have a lovely, lovely week, Tim.
Okay.
Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.